Chapter 579. Whoosh! Like a ferocious beast, the man in black, who was wearing a cloak and whose face was tightly covered by the hood of the cloak, and holding a wooden saber in his hand, shot out of the bushes at a speed that made people feel dizzy, and rushed towards Noah's direction. Whoosh! At the next moment, the black-clothed man whose entire body was almost completely hidden in the cloak raised the wooden blade in his hand. Accompanied by the sound of wind tearing, he slashed fiercely in Noah's direction amidst the whistling of the wind. He flew out of the bushes, and then violently shot to Noah's side, raising the saber and chopping down. Throughout the whole process, the man in black's performance was extremely smooth, without any sense of stagnation. It made people feel that less than a second had passed, and the wooden saber, which carried the whistling sound of wind, chopped towards Noah, which was very shocking. Noah, who had also diligently practiced swordsmanship since childhood, could tell at a glance that the man in black in front of him was very exquisite in swordsmanship. Even though he was not as talented as Tony, who specialized in swordsmanship and had extraordinary talent in swordsmanship, the man in black's swordsmanship attainments were probably not far from Alusha's, and probably on par with Electra's and Liliana's. Compared to swordsmanship, the man in black's speed was more shocking. However, no matter what, he still could not shake Noah. Noah, who had already sensed the movement in the bushes and the aura of the man in black, had already moved when the man in black raised the wooden saber over his head. Therefore, when the man in black's wooden saber chopped down with the whistling sound of wind, Noah had already unknowingly taken a step to the side. Whoosh! The violent wooden saber chopped down with a whistling sound, and fell on the position where Noah was just a moment ago. It brushed past Noah's shoulder, and then fell into the air. Almost at the moment when the wooden saber fell, Noah stretched out his hand and gently put it on the back of the wooden saber, pressing down the man in black's wooden saber. He raised his eyes, gazing at the man in black's face hidden in the cloak, and smiled indifferently. Since you want to attack, then don't use a wooden saber. How about directly attacking with a real sword? The only part of the black-clothed man's chin that was exposed moved slightly. His expression seemed to have changed, but he quickly recovered. He tightly gripped the wooden blade in his hand and viciously slashed at Noah's waist. Whoosh! With another sharp sound of wind, the wooden saber drew a flat trajectory in the air in the space in front of the man in black. However, this blow still fell into the air. With a thud sound, Noah tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and leaped away. Taking advantage of the fact that the man in black was about to execute a horizontal slash, he retreated rapidly to the back. While nimbly leaping backward step by step, he deliberately commented with skill and ease. No matter if it's attack speed or movement speed, they're both very impressive. Your swordsmanship isn't bad either. However, your sword is telling me that you're holding back. Otherwise, that wooden blade wouldn't pause for about 0.7 seconds every time before it attacks. Or are you just playing around? Or are you testing me? The man in black was silent. After a while, he threw away the wooden saber in his hand, and stretched out his hand, reaching under his cloak. At the waist of the man in black, a sheathed sword was hidden in the cloak. Only now did it poke its head out, and the man in black grasped it and slowly pulled it out. The sharp sword body shone with a dazzling arc light, and the cold edge slowly flowed on the sharp blade, making the rays of the setting sun emit a blood-red color, which made people's hair stand on end. There was no doubt that it was a real sword. Oh? Do you intend to use your real strength directly? Noah narrowed his eyes and smiled faintly. Then why don't you be more straightforward and use your full strength? The man in black was still silent, and only tightly grasped the hilt of the sharp sword in his hand, and his body slightly leaned forward. Clatter! The next moment, the crisp sound of footsteps sounded, and the whistling sound of the human body charging forward also sounded. The man in black directly disappeared. That was a super high speed that even the naked eye could not catch up with. Clang! Immediately, the sound of gold and iron clashing, followed by a burst of sparks from the friction, reverberated. That was the sound of the man in black's sword landing on a short weapon in Noah's hand at some point in time. No. That short thing that was about the size of a palm could not even be called a weapon, because it was just a fountain pen. Seeing that his sword attack was blocked by a fountain pen, the black-clothed man was shocked. Amazing speed. Holding the fountain pen, Noah, who blocked the man in black's slash, through the sparks that constantly rubbed against each other, shot his gaze directly at the man in black, and the corner of his mouth curved upwards. Unfortunately, if it's just fast speed, there are many ways to deal with it. After finishing his words, Noah turned the fountain pen in his hand, as if he was trying to pry open something, and fiercely knocked it upwards. Clang! The man in black soared suddenly, as if it was suddenly flicked away, and uncontrollably rose upwards. In the next moment, Noah directly raised the fountain pen in his hand, and without even removing the pen cap, suddenly stabbed it, and fiercely pierced the man in black's chest. Dong! A sound that was not so much of a stab from the fountain pen, but more of a sound that was like being hit by a blunt object, came from the man in black's chest. Goo! The man in black spat out a bitter sound, and his body seemed to have been hit by something heavy, and flew out, smashing onto the ground. Rubbing against the ground, he awkwardly rolled a distance of more than 10 meters before he flipped over, stabilized his body, and knelt on the ground with one knee. Cough, cough, cough. Unstoppable coughs came from the man in black's mouth that was hidden under the cloak, and he clutched his chest, as if he was in great pain. Seeing this, Noah withdrew the fountain pen that he stabbed out. Looking carefully, the surface of the fountain pen was actually covered with lines that looked like electric wiring. Those were the lines that were unique to the enhance magic. Through the enhance magic, to strengthen its hardness, that short fountain pen was able to block the slash of a sharp sword. Otherwise, even if Noah was able to react in time and use the fountain pen to block, the fountain pen would have been directly cut in half. Of course, only Noah knew the secret behind this. The man in black, who did not notice this abnormality, only thought that Noah used a fountain pen to block his full-strength blow, and even gave him a heavy blow. While he was still catching his breath, he was still in shock. Testing up to here should be enough, right? Noah looked straight at the man in black kneeling on the ground, and the fountain pen in his hand kept spinning. Who are you? With that kind of swordsmanship and speed, you can't be an ordinary person, right? The man in black's coughing stopped abruptly, as if he was forcefully holding back. He raised his head, and under the cloak, his gaze was cast on Noah. Noah could clearly feel the uncertainty in his eyes. After a while, the man in black seemed to have given up on something. He sighed, stood up, and opened his mouth. However, just as the man in black was about to say something, a surprised voice suddenly sounded. What? What's going on? Hearing this voice, Noah and the man in black were shocked at the same time. They turned their heads and looked at the source of the voice. They saw that at the side of the school gate, there was a boy in uniform carrying a school bag. After saying this in surprise, he saw the sword in the man in black's hand, which was shining with a cold light. Immediately, the boy took a step back, then turned around and ran desperately out of the school. Not good. The man in black finally spoke, but his voice was filled with anxiety. He lifted his foot, wanting to chase in the direction of the boy who was running away. However, at the same time, a fountain pen fiercely pierced towards him, causing the man in black to reflexively stop his body and dodge to the side, avoiding the fountain pen that was thrusting towards him. Then a hand grabbed the man in black's neck, forcibly choking him, and lifted him up. Ugh! The man in black held onto Noah's hand that was choking his neck, and struggled in pain. However, Noah tightly choked the man in black's neck, and his eyes became somewhat cold. Are you trying to attack my student in front of me? The man in black kept struggling, as if he was really in pain. Hey! At this time, a voice that was not at all high and low came from behind Noah. A delicate fist rubbed against the air, and heavily smashed towards Noah's back. Feeling the strong wind coming from behind, Noah frowned, released the man in black's neck, and dodged. Chapter 580. Bam! When Noah let go of the man's neck, the man immediately fell to the ground, clutching his neck and coughing. In front of the man in black, a petite girl stood in front of the man in black, seemingly intending to protect him. She got into a fighting stance and stared at Noah. However, there was no vigilance in her expression. Instead, she was quite calm to the extent that it made people feel that she was emotionless. Noah had seen that kind of posture, that kind of performance last night, and it made his eyebrows twitch slightly. Kitten? The newcomer was Kitten of Tower City. Looking at Kitten's posture, it was obvious that she was in cahoots with the man in black. I'm very sorry, Sensei. My servant seems to be a little rude to you, please understand. In the next second, such an elegant and sweet voice echoed from behind Kitten and the man in black, drilling into Noah's ears. Not long after, a tall and slender girl with bright red hair walked over with an awe-inspiring and elegant gait. Beside him, there was a similarly tall and slender girl with long black hair that reached her waist. Her hair was tied into a ponytail, and she let it hang freely behind her. She gave off the aura of Yamato Nadako, and compared to the former, she was not the slightest bit inferior in terms of beauty. Noah had never seen the beautiful girl with the aura of Yamato Nadashiko before, but he had heard some rumors in the past 2 days. In Full King Academy, the first and second most popular third-year girls were very close to each other. They were practically inseparable from each other on normal days. You could see these two girls together wherever you went. Just like the president and vice president of the student council, they were a rare combination of beauties. The first most popular was naturally Lias Jimenez, who had bright red hair and looked like a princess from a noble family. The second most popular was a girl with the aura of Yamato Nadashiko, who had a nearly extinct long black ponytail, Jurai Himashima. At this very moment, the most popular girl duo in Komoi Academy made their entrance valiantly, passing by Kitten and the man in black to arrive before Noah. Although he was not too surprised, Noah still frowned. So it's you, Lias. Noah had a hunch when the man in black attacked him. It was probably someone sent by either Lias or Zaqueo to test him. That was because the man in black also had the aura of a demon. However, judging from the fact that Zaqueo did not know that he had summoned Kitten in the morning, the demons in the academy seemed to mind their own business. That was why Noah could not be sure that the man in black who attacked him had something to do with Lias or Zaqueo. Now Noah was sure. Not only the man in black, but even Kitten had a special relationship with Lias. Well, on the other hand, Zaqueo's childhood sweetheart, Lias did not seem to be working with her. Kitten reported to me that Sensei seems to be quite skilled, so I asked Yudu to test him a little. I'm really sorry. Despite apologizing, Lias's expression was still as dignified as ever as she smiled fearlessly. Yudu, you should say hello to Sensei too. Hearing Lias's words, the man in black stood up from the ground and took off his cloak, revealing his face. That was actually a very handsome man with outstanding looks. I'm very sorry, Sensei. That was rude of me. He swiftly brandished his sword and sheathed it into the scabbard at his waist. The good-looking man then bowed at Noah. I'm Kiba Yuto, a second-year student. Nice to meet you. Kiba Yuto? Noah glanced at Lias Jurai Himashima, Kitten Tashiro, and Kiba Yuto. I'm quite lucky today to meet the most popular students of each grade. Lias and Jurai Himashima were the top 2 most popular students in Komoi Academy, and were naturally the most popular third-year students in their respective grades. Kiba Yuto was the most popular second-year student, a very polite and good-looking man. Noah had heard about him before. As for little Kitten, she was a junior of the first grade. Due to her adorable appearance, the entire Colt King Academy treated her like a mascot and doted on her. Her popularity was also at the top of the first grade. The most popular first-year, second-year, and third-year students were now gathered in front of Noah. Noah did not say that he was surprised, but he was more or less sighing. After all, the most popular people in Komoi Academy were all demons. It seemed that the Colt King Academy wasn't as simple as it seemed. Aren't we honored as well? Lias, who appeared to be the leader of the group, replied to Noah with a shrug. We're quite lucky to have a face-to-face talk with the new teacher who captured the hearts of all the girls in the academy in less than 2 days. Noah's expression turned bitter, and he took a deep breath before glancing at Lias. I've finally forgotten about that. Can you please not bring it up? Miss Lias, you had your familiar send me flyers, you had me summon Kitten Tashiro, and now you've sent Kiba Yuto to test me. Are you that interested in me? Well, I'm sure you've seen the curiosity of high school girls in the last 2 days, sir. I'm one of them, so it's normal for me to be interested in you, isn't it? Lias put one hand on her hip and the other in front of her, as if she was a noble representative who was about to speak. Well then, let me reintroduce myself to you, sir. I am Lias Gimli, the next leader of the pure-blooded demon family, the Gimli family of the underworld. I'm a superior demon. Lias puffed out her voluptuous breasts, and her bright eyes met Noah's gaze. She was brimming with confidence and pride. As for the children beside me, they are my kin. Nice to meet you, Sensei Noa. Jurai Himejima crossed her hands in front of her and solemnly performed a Japanese salute. I am Jurai Himejima, Lias Gimli's kin. I've already introduced myself, but let me reintroduce myself. A polite smile appeared on Kiba Yuto's face. I am Kiba Yuto, Lias Gimli's kin. Me too. Kitten Tashiro lowered her head at Noa. I'm Kitten Tashiro, Lias Gimli's kin. Jurai Yuto and Kitten Tashiro. These children were originally human, so you don't have to be surprised that there are so many demons in the academy, Sensei. Lias pursed her lips and smiled. In this academy, the only pure-blooded demons who were born as demons are me and Kana. The others are humans who were reincarnated into demons through our hands. I see. Noa calmly sorted out the information he received. So Jurai Kiba and Kitten Tashiro claim to be your kin because you were the one who reincarnated them into demons, right? All reincarnated demons in this world are the kin of pure-blooded demons. After all, they are like second parents. You can understand it that way for now, Sensei. Lias' eyes flashed. Then, shouldn't you introduce yourself, Sensei? Me. Noa pointed at himself and asked knowingly. What else do I need to introduce myself? I'm just a normal teacher. At that, the smile on Lias' face slowly disappeared as she sighed. Although in the demon world, a demon of my age can only be considered a minor, teacher and my dependents are all very outstanding servants. Even if Yudu's strength can't compare to a superior demon, he's still much stronger than the average inferior demon. Such a Yudu can't even make teacher take him seriously. Do you think we'll still believe that such a person is an ordinary person? Lias aside, even Jurai Yuto and Kitten Tashiro became serious as they stared at Noa, as if trying to figure out something from Noa. Are you saying that I'm not human? Noa casually opened his hand as his voice echoed. Unfortunately, I'm neither a demon nor an angel. I'm a real human. Chapter 581. Behind Chariot King Academy, there was a lush forest. There was a building surrounded by trees in the middle of the forest. It was the old school building of Komodo Academy. The old school building was the former school building of Chariot King Academy. It wasn't exactly abandoned, but it wasn't in use either. It gave off a rather eerie feeling. It was one of the 7 incredible events that happened in every academy, and it was spread throughout the entire academy. However, although the exterior of this wooden school building was very old, the glass of the windows was very intact. At first glance, there was no obvious damage. Although it was old, it could not be considered as a dilapidated building. Of course, the interior of the building was even more so. Not only were the corridors very clean, even the unused classrooms were spotless. The scene of cobwebs and layers of dust that one would expect to see didn't appear. This told others that this place was often cleaned. In such a school building, there was a spacious room. It was a room with mysterious words written in every corner of the room. And in the center of the room was a huge magic circle that took up most of the space. It looked rather eerie. In addition, there were only a few sofas and a luxurious desk in this room. The interior was equipped with a lot of commonly used furniture, such as a table placed in the middle of the sofa, a lamp, a chandelier, and an inner bathroom. It dispelled a lot of the strange atmosphere that permeated the air. In fact, the room was the activity area of Komodo Academy's Supernatural Research Department. Led by Lias, the Jumanli family members were all members of the department, and Lias was the department's minister. At this time, the sky was almost dark. However, there were quite a lot of people in the Supernatural Research Department's activity area. Jurai Himeshima came to the sofa with a cup of hot tea and put it on the table in front of Noa, who was sitting on the sofa. Please have some tea, Sensei. Thank you. Noa did not stand on ceremony. He picked up the cup of hot tea and took a sip. He then held the cup in his hand and looked across. There Lias was sitting on the sofa, facing off against Noa. Jurai Himeshima returned to Lia's side after making tea for Noa and stood behind her, closest to the sofa. Beside her, Shiba Yuto and Tashiro Kitten stood side by side. The difference in status could be seen from the scene. All right, Lias, Noa said uninterestedly as he sipped his tea. You went through so much trouble to test me and invite me here. That's enough of a show. Shouldn't we get to the point? I didn't do that on purpose. Leah frowned unhappily, but recovered in the next second and looked straight at Noah. This Cold King Academy is run by the Jamanli family. It's also my territory in the human world. To be honest, with someone like Sensei suddenly barging in, we have to be on guard, right? According to what you're saying, aren't the students and teachers in this school trespassing into your territory? Noah said without changing his expression. Are you still on guard against all the students and teachers in this academy, Leah? Sensei, you should know what I mean. Can you stop beating around the bush? Leah's beautiful brows furrowed even tighter. You should know that I'm not on guard against the students and teachers who come to this academy to study and work, but the powerful ones who come to this academy to study and work. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that I didn't sense the presence of demons, angels or fallen angels on you, we would have treated you as an intruder and eliminated you directly. Leah's beautiful eyes stared straight at Noah as a faint magical aura began to emanate from her body. But just like you said, you're just a human. My territory has never prohibited humans from entering. Just like the students and teachers in this academy. That's a little difficult to deal with. That's why we hope that you can cooperate with us. At least that way there won't be any conflict. Noah's expression remained unchanged when he heard that, but deep down, he already had a good impression of Leah's. Before the official negotiation began, Noah had learned a lot of information from Kitten and Shiba Yuto during their casual conversation. Demons were not the only ones in this world. Even the angels and fallen angels in the Bible existed. It was said that the demons and fallen angels had been fighting each other since ancient times in order to dominate the underworld, which was also what humans called hell. The underworld was roughly divided into two sides. One side was the territory of demons, and the other was the territory of fallen angels. In order to monopolize the underworld and hold the ruling rights of the entire underworld in their hands, demons and fallen angels had been fighting for territory since ancient times like two countries, but neither could do anything to the other. With the God in the Bible as their leader, the angels in the heavenly realm also regarded demons and fallen angels as targets that must be eradicated. As a result, the three factions, demons, angels and fallen angels, formed a tripartite balance and continued to fight, even until now. Compared to the so-called demons, angels and fallen angels, the powerless humans were undoubtedly too weak. That was why Leah could allow humans to study and work in her territory as they wished. However, if other demons, angels or fallen angels were to barge in, it would be considered as trespassing unless they had Leah's permission. At that time, Leah would do her best to expel the enemy, or even eliminate them completely. Noah was a human, which was just within Leah's tolerance range. However, Noah possessed powerful abilities that ordinary humans could not possess. That was why Leah had to be careful, and that was nothing out of the ordinary. However, Noah was still a human in the end. No matter how powerful he was, Leah could completely mobilize the demon's forces to encircle and annihilate Noah. She did not need to be wary of major factions like angels and fallen angels, so why was there a need to say so much? Now Leah took the initiative to say that she did not want to have a conflict. That proved that Leah's nature was not bad, and she did not look down on humans as a superior pure-blooded demon. Instead, she chose to talk to Noah as an equal. At this time, if Noah still did not give her face, he would not be able to get through it. But as you said, I'm just a human. Even if I have power, I only represent myself. Humans don't even know about the existence of demons, let alone forming a faction to fight against demons, right? Noah said straightforwardly. Or do you think that I'm an enemy sent by the angels or fallen angels, Miss Leah? No, be it angels or fallen angels, humans under their control have the right to exercise the power of light, and there is no aura of light on you. Leah stroked her chin and muttered. There is no power bestowed by demons, angels or fallen angels. Although it does not prove that you are not related to any of them, at least we know that you have power as a pure human, so there are a lot of things to consider. No matter what the considerations are, Miss Leah, I understand that you have your own concerns, but I'm only here to be a teacher, and I don't have as complicated considerations as you. Noah sighed. So, as you said, in order to avoid conflict, as long as you give me a non-exclusive explanation, it's not impossible for me to cooperate with you. That's easy. Leah's expression relaxed, and a beautiful smile reappeared on her face. First of all, I hope you can allow me to investigate your identity." Hearing this, Noah was a little surprised. "Did you not investigate my identity when you were interested in me before? At that time I had already decided to get in touch with you first, so I didn't do anything rude. Now that I think about it, it's great that I didn't do that." Leah smiled. "It's fine now, right? All right." Noah spread his hands helplessly. Although Noah's identity could not be said to be flawless, he did not come into contact with any demons, angels, or fallen angels. Since he did not do it, she could not investigate. That was the main thing Leah's was worried about, and there was no harm in letting her investigate. However, Leah's next sentence really stunned Noah. "Then we hope to send someone here to live with you temporarily," Leah said seriously. "Right, how about Kitten?" "Huh." Noah was stunned. Chapter 582. The sky soon turned dark. Noah, who had just walked out of Colt King Academy, turned around and glanced at the academy that was gradually darkening under the night sky. Then, he turned his gaze to his side and sighed helplessly. Why did things turn out this way? It's Minister Lyatha's order. Kitten, who was carrying a backpack like a primary school student, walked slowly beside Noah and looked straight ahead. Her monotonous voice was unsure if she was answering Noah's question or muttering to herself. "Since it's an order, I have to obey." That being said, there was no way the kitten did not know why Leah wanted her to live with Noah. Since she did not know if Noah was really related to demons, angels, or fallen angels, it was necessary for Lyath to be cautious. Putting Kitten beside Noah, to put it nicely, was to have her kin witness that Noah did not intend to do anything strange. To put it bluntly, it was actually surveillance. If Noah had not shown the ability to easily defeat Kibayuto, Lyath would not have treated him so cautiously. However, Noah just so happened to possess this level of strength. As the secret controller of Colt King Academy, and the next leader of a pure-blooded demon family, Lyath naturally had to pay attention to the uncertain factor that was Noah so that the angels and the fallen angels would not take advantage of her. After all, she was the next leader of a demon noble, and being cautious was necessary. Noah understood Leah's concerns, and he also understood why Leah sent the kitten to his side. She was probably afraid that Noah would be disgusted by such blatant surveillance, so she chose Kitten, who was in contact with Noah and was somewhat familiar with him, to take on the responsibility. It was exactly the same as when Erica and Liliana came to Noah's side as his followers, was it not? The difference was that Erica and Liliana came to Noah because they were afraid that Noah would mess up Italy, while Kitten came to Noah because she was afraid that Noah would harm Leah. Both of them were not for themselves but for others. Then, even if Noah wanted to make trouble, he couldn't make trouble for these people who came to his side. "Teacher, I hope you don't blame Minister Lyas." The kitten seemed to have sensed Noah's inner thoughts. She raised her head and stared at Noah with her big watery eyes. Her heart was shaking like waves. Minister Lyas is the next head of the House of Gimli. There are many things to consider, and many things are not voluntary. Please believe me, the minister is a very good person. Being stared at by the kitten with such pitiful eyes, Noah almost couldn't help but relax. However, what the kitten said was true. Although Noah suppressed Kibayuto was just a low-level demon. For the higher-level demons of the underworld, suppressing a low-level demon was nothing at all. In other words, Lyas only felt that Noah had a certain level of strength, but did not know what Noah's true strength was. Under such circumstances, who would think that a human could resist a demon family? So, if it were another demon, they would probably use their own power to eliminate Noah, the unknown factor, right? But she did not do that. Instead, she went to great lengths to avoid conflict using all kinds of means. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a good person. It was also because of this that Noah could not make trouble for her. If the other party was a rude devil who wanted to attack him without a care in the world, Noah would definitely kill the other party without leaving a single piece of armor behind. If the other party was a person who did one thing on the surface and another in secret and had some kind of scheme against Noah, Noah would let them have a taste of their own medicine. But Lyas did so much without any malicious intent. She just wanted to avoid conflict with Noah as much as possible and settle things amicably. If that was the case, what reason would Noah have to make trouble for her? What Noah did not know was that it was the same for Lyas. If Noah came to Komodo Academy with ulterior motives, Lyas would definitely wipe him out without mercy. If Noah came to Komodo Academy specifically to deal with Laius, she would not hesitate to attack him as well. The problem was that Noah was only a teacher in the academy, and the students were saying that the teacher was very gentle and considerate. He even went easy on Kiba and even stopped Kiba because he thought that Kiba was going to attack a witness who appeared out of nowhere. That meant that Laius had no reason to attack him directly. In other words, be it Noah or Laius, they were the type who would only act decisively against those with ill intentions. However, Noah and Laius would show equal kindness to others when they were being kind. From that point of view, Noah and Laius were the same type of people. I'm not blaming your minister. Noah scratched his cheek as the kitten stared at him. I'm just thinking that your minister is letting a cute girl like you live under the same roof with a guy like me. Aren't you afraid that I'll do something to you? Hearing this, the kitten's big watery eyes, which were staring at Noah, narrowed. Don't have any unhealthy thoughts. If I really had any unhealthy thoughts, I wouldn't have said it. Noah's mouth twitched. Must you interpret my words that way? Don't worry. The kitten looked forward again and threw out this sentence without turning its head. I'm very strong. In other words, if Noah did have any unhealthy thoughts, I'll beat you up. The kitten said it out loud. Is that so? The kitten's words triggered the strong part of Noah's heart, and Noah glanced at the kitten. Even if you want to beat me up, it's still a question whether you're a match for me. The kitten turned around and looked at Noah with eyes full of rebuttal, as if she did not believe him. Noah could not help but remind her. Look, that Kiba is not a match for me either. Yoda-senpai did not show his true strength. The kitten could not help but retort. If Yoda-senpai shows his true strength, he will definitely not lose to you. Even so, kitten, are you confident that you can beat me? Noah said with a smile, which made the kitten's eyes show a trace of annoyance. I'm confident that you can't resist. Do you want to try? The kitten suddenly looked at Noah for a while, then sped up past Noah, and walked in the direction of Noah's apartment, leaving only such a sentence. I will definitely beat up that teacher who has such unhealthy and dirty thoughts. Listening to the kitten's unyielding words, looking at the kitten's petite back that gradually disappeared, Noah pointed to his forehead with his finger, but the corners of his mouth slowly raised. Very well, then I'll play with you, kitten. After that, Noah's mood seemed to have become a lot happier, and he also quickened his pace, walking in the direction of his apartment. As a man, Noah was also the kind of person who did not often cook. When he was young, he almost ordered whatever he wanted to eat in the guild. When he grew up, he had a typical wife and mother like Mira, so Noah was not reduced to the point where he needed to cook. In the world of the Black Bullet, Noah was the shelter of the cursed child. Occasionally, he would cook by himself, but more often than not, he would just eat the ready-made food, such as ordering takeout. In the world of absolute dual blades, Howling Academy provided food and accommodation for free, so naturally, Noah did not need to cook by himself. In the world of the Night of the Sorcerer, because of the uniqueness of Qingzi and Yuzhu, Noah did cook, but he only lived for about a month, so the number of times he cooked was limited. As for the world of the Godslayer, it was needless to say Liliana prepared everything, so why would Noah the king need to find food by himself? Therefore, Noah's cooking was not good but not bad and could be considered to be average. Even so, the kitten still finished the meal with relish and obediently clasped her hands together to express her gratitude. Thank you for your hospitality. It's just a simple meal. Noah nonchalantly cleaned up the bowls and chopsticks. I'll take care of here, kitten, you go take a shower first. As soon as he said this, the kitten immediately reacted. Chapter 583. Noah, who was cleaning up the bowls and chopsticks on the table, suddenly sensed a sharp gaze pressuring him. It stared intently at his body, causing him to be slightly startled. He turned his head and met that sharp gaze. Immediately, the scene of kitten staring at Noah with an expressionless and vigilant gaze was imprinted in Noah's eyes. Suddenly, Noah frowned and looked at his own body. Is there anything strange about my body? Seeing Noah frowning and looking at himself with a puzzled expression, Kitten's brows were also tightly knitted together. Her gaze was still fixed on Noah, as if trying to see through his disguise. Teacher, are you planning to do something? Hearing this, Noah almost slipped and fell. Why would you come to such a conclusion? Because didn't you say before that you want me to be irresistible? Kitten only filtered the above sentence in her heart, but she did not really say it out loud. Looking at Noah's twitching mouth as if he couldn't stand it, the vigilance in little Kitten's eyes slowly faded after she didn't notice anything unusual. It seems that I was too vigilant. Maybe the teacher was just joking. With that thought, Kitten stood up and politely bowed her head to Noah. Then I'll go wash up first. With that, Kitten turned around and stayed in the same place for a while. She turned her head and said with half-closed eyes, "If the teacher comes to peep, I'll hate you to death." Noah rolled his eyes and did not bother to explain. He just kept the tableware and walked towards the kitchen. The kitten nodded in satisfaction and walked towards the bathroom. As for the change of clothes, Lyeth had just sent it over with a magic circle. It seemed that Lyeth really intended to let Kitten stay in Noah's house for the time being. She was not worried at all that Noah would do to Kitten. That was also because she trusted the kitten's ability, and did not understand Noah's ability. After all, just as Kitten said, in the battle with Noah, Shiba Yuto did not show his true strength at all. No matter what, Shiba Yuto was a reincarnated demon. How could he only have extraordinary swordsmanship and extraordinary speed? Noah estimated that Shiba Yuto should still have some abilities that he had yet to use. He did not even use his demon magic power. He probably had not even used half of his strength, right? Noah, on the other hand, had only displayed his outstanding close combat ability from the beginning to the end. His use of enhanced magic was not discovered. Even if Noah had melee combat ability that could crush Shiba Yuto, the demons like Leah's thought that he could not be that strong since he did not have any special abilities. Therefore, he was relieved to let Kitten monitor Noah. Little did he know that this conjecture was truly wrong. Noah, who had put away the tableware in the kitchen, glanced at Kitten, who walked into the bathroom with an amused expression on his face. "Even if you're a demon, you're still too young." As soon as he said that, Kitten's exclamation came from the bathroom. How could it be?" Hearing the exclamation, Noah shrugged. After putting down the tableware, he walked toward the bathroom and opened the door. As soon as he opened the door, a gaze full of anger and annoyance was cast on Noah. Naturally, it was Kitten's gaze. At this moment, the little demon who had threatened to send Noah flying had several bandages hanging from the ceiling tightly wrapped around her limbs. She was hanging in the air with her arms and legs spread out. She struggled with her petite body while gritting her teeth and glaring at Noah with murderous eyes. "Oh, I was careless. It's just a trap that couldn't be any simpler. You actually fell for it just like that, Kitten-chan. All the plans I prepared to make you submit were all for nothing," Noah teased Kitten with a grin. "How is it? Didn't I say it would make you unable to resist?" Woo! Kitten's eyes became sharper, and her slender and short limbs began to tighten. There was a trace of magic flowing in them. "This kind of thing, I'll tear it off immediately." With such a sentence, Kitten tightened her limbs that were filled with magic, causing the bandages to make an unbearable sound. It was just some fragile bandages. If Kitten really wanted to break free, it was absolutely not difficult, not to mention that Kitten was a demon with monstrous strength. Of course, the prerequisite was that those bandages were ordinary bandages. Wong! Just as the kitten began to struggle seriously, the bandages that were tightly wrapped around the kitten's limbs trembled all over. Magic patterns that looked like electric wires appeared on the surface of the bandages. Under the strengthening of enhanced magic, the most ordinary of bandages suddenly became the strongest of restraints. Even if Kitten's monstrous strength tore them into a critical state where it would not be surprising if they were to break at any time, there was still not a single crack appearing. Seeing this scene, Kitten's pretty face that originally did not have a trace of emotion finally showed a trace of surprise. Magic! In the next moment, the surprise on Kitten's face turned into a solemn one, and the gaze that stared at Noah also carried a trace of malice. "You're not an ordinary human, you're a mage." Hearing this, Noah spread his hands, as if he had already expected Kitten's reaction. When they were in the Supernatural Research Department, Noah told Liesi that humans did not have any forces that could compete with demons, angels, or fallen angels. He intended to use this to convince Liesi. However, after that, Liesi also explained to Noah that this statement was actually a bit off. Among humans, there were also some individuals who were not ordinary, and had the power to compete with demons, angels, and fallen angels. One of them was mages. In this world, magic power seemed to be a power exclusive to demons. Humans could not have it. Rather than calling it magic power, it was more appropriate to call it demonic power. Demons all had the privilege of using magic power. By imagining magic power, they could make it have various effects. Sometimes it was to turn magic power into fire. Sometimes it was to turn magic power into lightning. Or it could be used after transforming magic power into healing, hypnosis, defense, and other properties. In that case, demons could use magic power to make magic power have various effects. And humans also had similar powers. That was magic. The so-called magic was actually the power of analyzing demons' magic power into tactics that humans could use, allowing humans to exercise similar abilities to demons. Magic power and magic were similar yet different things. Magic power was the power that demons relied on to trigger supernatural phenomena. Demons would transform their imagination into complex and powerful magic power, and then give the magic power various properties, such as fire, water, ice, thunder, healing, hypnosis, defense, and so on, so that they could exert the same effects as their properties. Magic, on the other hand, relied on the steps of using rituals and tactics to trigger supernatural phenomena. Unlike demons who could directly transform magic power into power with various effects, magic required the activation of magic arrays, and the use of rituals or tactics to perform calculations before the corresponding effects and abilities could be exerted. Using the formula of arithmetic to make it clear, magic power was the direct result of 2, and magic was the power that had to go through the calculation of 1 plus 1 to obtain the result of 2. Originally, the origin of magic was to allow people other than demons to use their own tactics and rituals to use magic power similar to demons. However, now that all kinds of magic had appeared, some magic could even do things that demonic power, that is, magic power, could not do. Of course, correspondingly, there were also magic powers that magic could not replace. For example, the characteristics and abilities of pure-blooded superior demon families were passed down from generation to generation. That was a special power that only the family could use. Magic could not simulate it. Therefore, magic and magic power were similar yet different powers. In Noah's current situation in this world, the magic power in his body could no longer be called magic power. It was an existence like magic power or mana. With such power, Noah could no longer be considered an ordinary human. Noah deceived Liath. Chapter 584. Noah had lied to Leah. Noah could read the message from the cat's sinister gaze. In this regard, Noah just said indifferently, "What? Are mages not considered humans?" The kitten couldn't help but be speechless, unable to say anything to refute. Humans naturally could not become less human just because they could use demonic magic. However, mages could not be normal humans either. To demons, humans were extremely weak and powerless individuals. But among mages, there were some who stood out and could even rival superior demons. Those were not humans that demons could treat as weak and powerless individuals. Therefore, from the perspective of demons, humans and human mages were two completely different concepts. If Leah had known that Noah was a mage, she probably would not have simply sent the cat to Noah's residence, who was likely to be an enemy. At that moment, the cat clenched her teeth in regret. "Undoubtedly, Minister Leah has chosen to trust you. Is there a problem with your chief Lias choosing to trust me?" Noah reminded him with a strange expression. "I didn't say that I could use magic or anything like that, but I'm not lying either. I'm just a normal teacher at Full King Academy. You don't mean that I have to hurt your minister just because I'm a mage, do you?" Noah reached out and patted the cat's smooth, pretty face. "Or rather, if I really wanted to harm your minister, I wouldn't have used magic in front of you so easily. Instead, I would have hidden it and only used it when I could deliver a fatal blow to Miss Leah. That would have been the end of it." Hearing this, the kitten fell silent. After a while, the kitten said this with an uncertain tone. "You really don't want to harm Minister Leah? All right. If you find it hard to believe, I'll be frank with you." Noah sighed helplessly and looked up, a glint flashing in his dark, deep eyes. "Leah Jaimanri is no match for me. If I wanted to harm her, I wouldn't have to go through so much trouble. Do you understand?" The cat wanted to refute when she heard that. However, from Noah's extremely calm smile, the kitten keenly felt a chill run from the soles of its feet to its back, then from its back to the top of its head, causing the kitten's scalp to feel numb. Instinct told the cat. That was 100% accurate. If this man really wanted to harm Leah, then Leah Jaimanri would vanish from this world in no time at all. However, in the next moment, the calm smile on Noah's face was replaced by a sinister smile. The chill and disbelief that made the cat's scalp tingle disappeared without a trace. I just want to prove that I can really make you unable to resist. Noah continued to pat the cat's face with a smile. If you admit your teacher's ability now, I'll put you down. How about it? Noah's teasing words made the cat's uncertain mood turn into anger. The cat took a deep breath, clenched her teeth and tightened her limbs. The bandages wrapped around the cat's short limbs immediately tightened again, making a sound as if they could not bear the burden. However, with the help of enhanced magic, no matter how hard the cat tried, she still could not tear the bandages apart. Seeing this, Noah felt bored. Kitten, I didn't expect you to have such a competitive and unyielding nature when you look so cold. You really are like a wild cat. The cat glared at Noah and continued to struggle, silently expressing her resistance. Speaking of which, Kitten seems to hate things about sex, right? Noah's eyes turned, and for some reason, an expression that made the cat a little timid appeared on his face. Tell me, what should I do for a cute girl who can't resist at all in front of me? As he said that, Noah gently put a hand on the cat's exposed thigh. At the same time, an indescribable feeling came from his hand, and at the same time, the cat felt her whole body tremble. Then Noah's hand slowly moved up her smooth thigh, making Kitten's heart skip a beat. She clenched her teeth tightly, and even her voice trembled a little. Worker teacher. You've been treating me as a worker teacher from the beginning, haven't you? Noah responded with a bright smile that did not contain the slightest bit of malice. Since you've already treated me as a worker teacher, why don't you take advantage of this opportunity to do some worker work? While speaking, Noah's hand had already slid down the cat's slender thigh to the corner of the cat's skirt. If it went any further, it would really reach the cat's skirt. The cat glared at Noah in anger. Even the usually emotionless face had a hint of anger. But more than that, her face was flushed with embarrassment. But even so, the cat did not intend to admit defeat. That was not only because of Noah's bad behavior, but also because of the cat's inner feelings. The cat was telling Noah, no matter what Noah planned to do, the cat in Pagoda City would not compromise, including if Noah really intended to attack Leah. Obviously, Kitten still didn't choose to believe Noah's words 100%. As expected, you're a wild cat that's hard to tame. To think that Lias could take you in as her kin, and keep you so loyal. The mischievous smile on Noah's face completely disappeared. He rolled his eyes and withdrew his hand that was stroking the kitten's thigh. All right. Consider it my loss. It was just a joke. You actually took it so seriously. I'm convinced. With that, Noah turned around and walked out of the bathroom. Pa. Almost at the same time when Noah turned around and walked out of the bathroom, the enhanced magic lines on the bandages disappeared. With a crisp cracking sound, Kitten neatly tore them apart. The kitten landed on the ground again. First, she glanced at the door of the bathroom. Then, she looked at the torn bandages hanging on her body and fell silent. After a long time, a murmur echoed in the bathroom. What a strange teacher. Time slowly passed by. Not long after, the lights in every room in the apartment were turned off one by one. The light in Noah's room also dimmed at some point. In the dim room, Noah was sleeping on the bed on the ground. His hands were on the pillow and his head was on his hands. He looked at the ceiling and suddenly spoke. Are you asleep? Noah did not get a response. However, the bed that originally belonged to Noah wriggled a little and told Noah the answer. This made Noah more or less helpless. Are you still angry? Noah still did not get any response to this question. After a while, a muffled response came from the bed that just wriggled a little. Worker teachers are the most annoying. Okay. Whatever you say, Noah said perfunctorily. Then, his eyes flashed as he asked a question. Hey kitten, why did you reincarnate as a demon? This sentence was exchanged for an indescribable silence. Although Noah knew that his overly abrupt question might not get any response, he did not expect that it would make the atmosphere so heavy. Just when Noah was about to change the topic, the emotionless voice of the kitten came from the bed again. Because without the minister, this world no longer has me. After leaving this sentence, the kitten stopped talking. Sensing that the kitten doesn't want to talk, Noah smiled bitterly. For demons, angels, and fallen angels, ordinary humans were indeed quite fragile and powerless. Therefore, if there were humans who knew their powerlessness, they would probably choose to reincarnate as a demon without hesitation in order to get power. But sure enough, there were people who could not casually abandon their original identity. There must be a story about the kitten, right? Chapter 585. The next day, Noah left the apartment with Kitten and walked into Kamigami Academy. Noah and Kitten walked side by side on the crowded Academy Avenue. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that they went to school together. Suddenly there was a lot of noise around them. Is that the very popular new healthcare teacher? The one next to her looks like Kitten from Tashiro. Why would Noah-sensei go to school with Kita-chan? Could it be that Kita-chan also has her eyes on Noah-sensei? Nonsense. Undoubtedly, Noah-sensei has his eyes on our Kitten. That teacher must be a lullicon. That's why I say boys are a bunch of idiots. How could Noah-sensei be a lullicon? That's right. Noah felt a wave of helplessness in his heart amidst the increasing noise. Why do normal high school students like to gossip so much? On the other hand, Kitten seemed to be used to this phenomenon. She carried her backpack and walked expressionlessly on the way to the school dormitory, causing many boys around her to gasp violently. The girls who saw the disgusting appearance of those boys all avoided them with a look of disgust. Not long after, the school dormitory door appeared in front of Noah and Kitten. As soon as they entered the school dormitory, Noah and Kitten would silently go their separate ways. They would meet up after school and go back to the apartment together. However, before that, Noah inadvertently caught a glimpse of 3 boys beside the school dormitory door. They were having a conversation that he couldn't ignore. It's true. I'm telling the truth. Matsuda Motohashi, a boy who wore his uniform like a jacket and didn't button it up, was yelling at a boy with a crew cut and a boy with glasses in front of him. I really saw it. Yesterday evening, there were 2 people fighting at the school gate. One of them was wearing a black cloak and had a sword in his hand. It was definitely a sword. I can't be wrong. His words made Noah, who was about to step into the school, halt his footsteps. Not to mention Noah. Even the expressionless Kitten's eyes moved. She stopped in her tracks, stretched out her hand, and tugged at the corner of Noah's clothes. Noah nodded silently, confirming Kitten's guess. Yesterday, when Shiba Yuto was testing Noah, Liaz, Jurai Himashima, Kitten, and the others were nearby, and saw the whole thing unfold like the back of their hand. Naturally, everyone, including Kitten, knew that a student witnessed the battle between Noah and Kiba Yuto. Since they needed to save Yuto from Noah, Liaz, Junai, Kitten, and the others did not have time to chase after him. But that didn't mean that Liaz and the others didn't care about it. After all, if something went wrong, not only would the existence of demons be exposed to the general public, but even if the existence of demons was not exposed, it would cause quite a commotion. That was why Liaz had seriously said yesterday that they must find the witness. As for what to do after that, she did not say. Still, Liaz would never kill the witness just to hide something. When Kiba Yuto found the witness, he seemed to only want to capture him and not hurt him, which Noah had misunderstood Kiba Yuto. This matter should have been left to Liaz to handle. But since they met, it was better to at least stop that guy from spreading nonsense around. Under Noah and the Kitten's watchful eyes, the conversation continued. But you said that someone was fighting with a sword. That's a little unbelievable. The crew-cut boy called Matsuda seemed troubled. Who would wield such a weapon now? Even if they did, it should be a dagger or a kitchen knife, right? And Icheng, the sword you're talking about is the kind of sword you see on TV. Instead of saying that it's used for fighting, it's more like a sword used for acting, right? The bespectacled man called Yuanbian also pushed up his glasses and spread his hands helplessly. Could it be that you're mistaken? Damn it, you just don't believe me. The witness called Icheng pointed at Matsuda and Yuanbian and yelled. Aren't we the Gentleman's Alliance trio? How dare you doubt me? No, no, no. Even if you say so, you're talking about a duel, not a field battle. We're not interested in talking about it. Matsuda's expression was infuriating as he smirked like a thief. If it's a duel between a magical girl and a tentacle monster, then it's a different story. Hearing this, whether it was Yicheng who claimed to be the witness or Yuan Bin, both of them showed a drooling expression as if they were imagining something that had to be censored before it could be broadcasted. This caused the kitten to lower its eyelids and spit out such a sentence. Despicable and filthy forefathers. You're really strict, Kita-chan. However, Noah more or less wanted to laugh dryly. There's nothing wrong with a male forefather, but if it's a forefather, then it's fine to go back home. If it's a forefather outside, then it's too shameful. However, the three of them didn't seem to have any self-awareness at all. They suddenly gave up on the topic just now and started to discuss on the street about their hobby. This caused the surrounding girls to avoid them in disgust. Their eyes also became very disdainful, as if they weren't looking at people but trash. In the end, even Kitten couldn't bear it anymore and pulled Noah's clothes. Sensei, please quickly get rid of that forefather. Let's say for the time being, Kitten, we want to keep him alive. Don't decide to erase people because of personal feelings, although it's indeed a bit unsightly. Noah smiled, then took a deep breath and walked over. Yicheng, who was talking about forefathers with Matsuda and Yuan Bin, suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder. Hey classmate, can I disturb you a little? Before he could finish his sentence, Noah and Yicheng's expression changed at the same time. Yicheng directly screamed, fiercely broke free from Noah's hand and jumped away. On the side, Matsuda and Yuan Bin also screamed. Huh? Aren't you that very popular new and annoying teacher? The two people's words were ignored by Noah and Yicheng. At this time, Yicheng was looking at Noah with a strange expression. His face was full of strange expression, as if he was surprised why he suddenly jumped away. His eyes were full of doubts. And Noah still maintained the posture of reaching out his hand and holding Yicheng's shoulder, letting his hand hang in the air, but his eyebrows were deeply wrinkled. Just now, when Noah held Yicheng's shoulder, the outline of the stone plate connected to the 10 patterns in his heart, the pattern representing the incarnation of the Dragon Man, trembled for no reason. No, it couldn't be said that there was no reason. Obviously, the reason why the Dragon Man had such a reaction should be related to the student called Yicheng. What was going on? Noah suppressed the surprise in his heart and pretended to be curious as he asked Yicheng, why did you suddenly jump away? Ah, no. That. Yicheng didn't seem to understand what was going on. He scratched his head and had a silly smile on his face. I also don't know why, but just now I suddenly felt a very scary thing approaching so unknowingly. The meaning behind his words was probably that Noah was that scary thing, right? In other words, when Noah felt that the Dragon Man incarnation had some reaction, the student called Yicheng also seemed to feel something. Noah, who had such a thought flashed in his heart, smiled slightly and said, actually, I'm just here to pass on a message. Pass on a message? Yicheng was startled. Do you see the child at the school dormitory door? Noah pointed at the direction of the kitten with his mouth. There's a cute girl there, saying that she has something to say to you after school, but she's too embarrassed to ask you out, so she asked me to pass on the message. Cute girl. Yicheng's ears suddenly perked up, and he looked in the direction of the school dormitory, and was immediately stunned. Isn't that the first grade Tachin kitten? That super cute mascot. Matsuda and Motabin let out tragic screams. Kitten asked me out? Yicheng was really shocked. Yes. Noah smiled indifferently. Don't let the girl wait for too long. After saying that, Noah left, leaving behind Yicheng, Matsuda and Motabin, the three of them making awkward sounds, the corner of his mouth raised. Let me see what's so special about you. Chapter 586. Bam! Grr! A muffled sound followed by an agonizing cry echoed in the old school. A figure was sent flying into the air before crashing to the ground. His head tilted to the side, revealing a face with a small fist imprint on it. Blood was still gushing out of his nose. It was the witness from yesterday, the one who was invited to the old school by Noah Hutaise. Not far in front of Hutaise was Kitten, who was still in the pose of throwing a punch. She told everyone how the imprint on Hutaise's face came about. Noah, who saw Kitten send Hutaise flying with a single punch, covered his face and pretended that he could not bear to watch. It took me a lot of effort to invite him here, and Lisi is also on her way here. We haven't even discussed how to deal with him yet, and you just threw a punch at him. What kind of reaction do you expect me to have? Hearing this, the kitten turned her head and stared at Noah. Her big, watery eyes were full of blame. What did you say to him when you asked him to come this morning? Well, Noah finally remembered the excuse he gave Hugh to Issei this morning. He turned his head away to avoid Kitten's piercing gaze. Why do you ask? Kitten stared at Noah speechlessly for a while before answering. If Sensei didn't say anything, why would this Sensei approach me with that perverted look on his face? Just because he came up to you with that perverted look on his face, you sent him flying with a punch? Noah's eyes started to twitch. Do you have to be so violent? Kitten-chan? Humph. Kitten snorted and turned her head away. I don't care if he's Sensei or Sensei of H, he's a nuisance. Yes, yes, yes. Noah shrugged helplessly. Kyuta Issei was lying on the ground like a boss in a game. He extended his trembling hand at Noah and spoke weakly. Why? Probably because he overheard the conversation between Noah and Kitten, Itachi realized that what Noah said this morning was a lie. Undoubtedly, I've been looking forward to this day. I thought that Kita-chan was going to confess to me. She even changed her underwear. Noah immediately took a step back. As if something dirty was about to stick to his body, he subconsciously avoided it. Expecting a cute girl to confess to him? Noah wasn't surprised that Issei would have such thoughts. It was because he wanted to make Issei think that way that Noah purposely made it sound so ambiguous. But why did she change her underwear? This guy definitely wasn't just looking forward to a confession. It was Noah's first time seeing a guy who could fantasize to such an extent. He had to hand it to him. At that moment, the door of the old schoolhouse opened and Lias, who was leading Jurai Himashima and Yuto Shiba, walked out. She stroked her long red hair that fluttered in the wind as she walked, a seductive smile on her face. Allah, is everyone here? On the other hand, Kiba Yuto and Himashima Jurina bowed politely to Noah. Sensei. Noah nodded to Kimishima Jurai and Kiba Yuto, then crossed his arms and gestured to Hyoto Kazunari. He's over there. I hope you can come up with a suitable solution. Liesi's expression turned serious, but when she saw Issei crying on the ground, a look of surprise appeared on her pretty face. It's him. Everyone was stunned when they heard Liesi's words. Noah turned around and looked at Liesi in confusion. You know him? Well, sort of. I didn't expect this kid to witness your fight with Yuto. Liesi smiled bitterly and walked toward Issei. She stopped in front of Issei and smiled. You raise your head. Just when Issei was about to raise his head, a foot suddenly came down from the sky and stepped on the back of his head, crushing his face down. Issei was about to raise his head when a foot came down from the sky and stepped on the back of Issei's head. Issei was about to raise his head, but he was about to raise his head when a foot came down from the sky. Ugh. What are you doing? Seeing that Hyuta Issei's head was still on the ground and his limbs were still flailing around, Lias glared at the culprit with a displeased look on her face. Kitten, what are you doing? Be careful, minister. Kitten stomped hard on the back of Issei's head, not letting him raise his head no matter how hard he struggled. This person is very skilled. He'll see under your skirt, minister. Is that so? Liesi pondered for a moment and stepped away helplessly. All right. Thank you, Kitty-chan. You're welcome, Kitten said expressionlessly. She waited until Liesi stepped away before retracting her foot and walking to the side. Issei, who was still struggling on the ground, lifted his head as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. His eyes widened when he saw the valiant Liesi. She was the most popular third-year student in Komodo Academy. She was like a celebrity Liesi Gimli. For Issei, whose head was filled with fantasies, the appearance of such an idol-like figure had probably messed him up completely. You're senior Liesi. Hi Issei. I've been paying attention to you for a long time. Liesi smiled as Issei looked at Issei's blank expression. I knew I'd have to tell you this sooner or later, but I didn't expect it to be now. Still, this is a good time, so I'll make it clear to you. With those words, Lias made a declaration. Issei Gimli, I hope you'll remember that I, Liesi Gimli, am a demon. Demon? Issei stared at Liesi blankly. He was completely at a loss. Noah, who was quietly watching the scene, turned his gaze to Issei, who was still lying on the ground, and narrowed his eyes. What's so special about you? Let me see. Inside the paranormal research department of the old school building, a large cross-shaped bandage was plastered on Hyoto Ishigara's face. He sat on the sofa looking around nervously. He seemed to be terrified by the mysterious words and magic circles in the room. Noah, who was leaning against the wall, had been observing Issei. He finally spoke when he saw Liesi sitting in front of the luxurious desk. Liesi, you seem to be quite familiar with Issei. You even revealed your identity. Can you explain it to me? As Noah spoke, everyone in the room, including Issei, turned their attention to Liesi. Apart from Jurai Himashima, everyone else seemed to have the same doubts. Didn't I just say it? I've been paying attention to Issei for a long time. Liesi glanced at Issei, who was still in a daze. Because he's the wielder of a sacred gear. The owner of the sacred gear. Kiba Yuto and Kitten looked at Hyoto Kazunari in surprise. The owner of the sacred gear? Hiruto Kazunari asked with a blank expression on his face. Noah was a little surprised. After hesitating for a while, he spoke with uncertainty. I remember you said yesterday that in this world, there's another type of person who possesses power beyond that of a normal human being. That's the wielder of a sacred gear, right? That's right. Liesi nodded. The so-called sacred gear refers to an extraordinary power that was created by the God of the Bible and possessed by a specific human being. Liesi stood up and walked to the desk. She leaned on the edge and looked at Issei, who was still in a daze. She let out a meaningful laugh. There's such a power in this child's body. That's why Kana and I have been paying attention to him for a long time. Noah lowered his head as a thoughtful look appeared on his face. Chapter 587. Noah learned from Ryaz that there were basically 3 types of humans in this world who possess power that could rival demons, angels, and fallen angels. The first type were magicians and mages who could use magic. The second type were those who possessed sacred gear, a power that was beyond the norm created by the God of the Bible. The third type were exorcists who joined the side of angels or fallen angels and were thus granted the power of light, working for the angels or fallen angels. Just like how Ryaz noticed Noah when he entered Kamigami Academy, there was no way she would not notice a person who possessed a sacred gear. However, unlike Noah, who had a clear understanding of the level of power he possessed and how to use it, Issei Hyuga clearly did not know that he possessed a sacred gear. That was why Issei Hyuga, who was being stared at like prey by Noah and Ryaz, could only smile awkwardly and raise his hand meekly. Sensei and Senpai? Can you explain it in a way that I can understand? What demon and the owner of the sacred gear? I don't understand at all, do I? It's normal for you to feel this way because the sacred gear in your body hasn't awakened yet. Even if you have that kind of power, you're still a normal person before it's awakened. You shouldn't feel much of it, Leah said as she crossed her arms. Originally, I didn't intend to tell you so much. After all, you're still under my observation. I haven't confirmed what kind of sacred gear is in your body, and I don't know how to deal with you. So, you can just pretend that there's a very dangerous thing in your body, and I have my eyes on you because you have that thing. Well, that's easy to understand. Issei Hyuga was a little speechless as if he did not know what to say. That was the only thing he could squeeze out after some hesitation. But why should I let you do whatever you want to me, senpai? As soon as this sentence came out, Issei found that including Noah, Jurai, Kitten, Kimura Yuto and the others were looking at him like he was an idiot. This made him involuntarily swallow a mouthful of saliva, and he felt a little uneasy in his heart. What? Did I say something wrong? Noah was the one who answered Issei Hyuga's question. Issei Hyuga, I know you haven't recovered from your normal state of mind, and it's not surprising that you would have such thoughts. But I have to tell you that once you step into a world where normal people shouldn't enter, you must first have power before you can talk about human rights. Noah told him the most realistic truth. It's a pity. Although you have the power that gives you that right in your body, you can't use it at all. Therefore, to demons, you're just an ordinary human. Are you sure you want to talk about human rights with demons as an ordinary human? Senpai, don't make it sound like we're evil. Even if we're demons, I don't want to make things difficult for normal people who don't know anything, and I don't want to involve normal people in this. Lia sighed and looked at Issei Hyuga. However, even if I don't have such thoughts, it doesn't mean that others don't. Let's not talk about demons for now. Angels won't come out of the heavens rashly, But there are still some fallen angels active in this city, and they will also have their eyes on the holder of the sacred gear. Seeing that Issei Hyuga was still in a daze, Laius smirked and said something extremely dangerous. In other words, a group of terrorists may also have their eyes on the thing in your body. If they judge that the thing is too dangerous, to the extent that it can even threaten demons, angels and fallen angels, then you may be wiped out by them. Issei Hyuga inhaled sharply, feeling that his body temperature had dropped a lot. Although he still did not understand what Laius was talking about, Issei Hyuga could still recognize the two words terrorists and wipe out clearly. That was to say, he would be killed by some unknown terrorist? Don't joke around. Before he realized what was going on, Hayato Ichinari found himself standing up and yelling at Laius. Why would I be killed for no reason? Everyone present fell silent at once. If you must ask why, I can only give you one answer. Laius closed her eyes and said emotionlessly, if you want to hate, then hate the god who put the sacred gear in your body. An indescribably heavy atmosphere filled the entire paranormal research department. Issei Hyuga's expression was extremely complicated. There was resentment for not being able to control his own life and death, as well as anger at Laius' irresponsible statement. However, Issei Hyuga really did not have the right to be angry at Laius. After all, Laius chose to tell Issei Hyuga these things and did not intend to do anything to Issei Hyuga. That was already very kind of her. However, even if Laius could guarantee that she would not do anything to Issei Hyuga, could she guarantee that the fallen angels would not do the same to Issei Hyuga? That was not something Laius could control, and she had no obligation to protect Issei Hyuga. It was as simple as that. Unfortunately, this was too much for humans who had always lived in a normal world to accept. Noah sighed in his heart and finally spoke. Laius, Issei Hyuga is my student no matter what. As I said, you must give a suitable solution, right? Sensei. Issei Hyuga quickly moved to Noah's side as if he had found his backbone and nodded at Noah. That's right. I didn't even know that there was such a dangerous thing in my body. Who would want something like that? Even if you don't want it, it's a fact that it's in your body, Laius said. No one will reason with you just because you want to. Then, is there no way to take the sacred gear out of my body? Issei Hyuga looked at Noah with some hope and anxiety. Hey sensei, there should be a way, right? Don't look at me like that. Even if there is, I don't know. Noah replied helplessly. I only found out about the existence of the sacred gear yesterday. In other words, I'm also a dabbler. It's useless for you to ask me. Then what should I do? Issei Hyuga was at a loss again. Is there really no other way? I think you're worrying a little too early. Noah shook his head when he saw Issei Hyuga's lost look. We still don't know if the sacred gear in your body has the power to threaten demons, angels and fallen angels. The fallen angels might not have noticed you. Things haven't developed to the stage you think they are. Issei Hyuga was a little relieved, but his face was still pale. What happened today was too much for Issei Hyuga, wasn't it? It seemed that Issei Hyuga would not be able to recover for some time. No matter what, Laius, send someone to protect Issei Hyuga first, Noah said to Laius. Didn't you say that you're still observing Issei Hyuga? How about close protection and direct observation? That's good too. Laius pondered for a moment and then nodded. Then, before the observation ends, I'll send someone to protect him. Hearing this, Hayato Akimori's gaze swept across Kitten and Jurai. Then, a perverted expression appeared on his face. Should I ask Himashima-senpai to protect me? Or should I ask Kitten to protect me? Everyone looked at each other when they saw Issei Hyuga, who was at a loss, fall into a delusion. This guy's skin is surprisingly thick. Chapter 588. About 10 minutes later, a crestfallen Issei and a bitterly smiling Yutokiba walked out of the Supernatural Research Department and headed towards the outside of the old school building. Needless to say, Laius had finally decided on the person who would protect and observe Hayato Kazunari. Just like how Kitten moved into Noah's house, Shiba Yuto would move into Hayato Kazunori's house for the time being. Until the sacred gear in Hayato Kazunori's body was fully understood, Leah would decide what to do with Hayato Kazunori again. So, while Issei's life would be the same as before, it would more or less change, right? After all, with Shiba Yuto, the most popular male student in Kiho Academy, protecting him, Issei would definitely become a popular figure in the academy. He believed that all kinds of rumors about Hyodo Kazunari would spread tomorrow. Noah, who had seen how gossipy the students in Kiho Academy were, had no doubts about that. Noah kept quiet as he watched Issei and Shiba Yuto leave. All sorts of thoughts flashed through his mind. Seeing Noah's silence, Lias asked curiously, "What's wrong? Is there a problem with Yuto protecting and observing Issei?" "No, that's not what I'm thinking." Noah shook his head. "I'm just a little concerned about the sacred gear in his body." Concerned about the sacred gear in his body? Lias tilted her head, puzzled. Is there something strange about the sacred gear inside Hyodo Kazunari's body? I already said that I only found out about the existence of the sacred gear yesterday. How do you expect me to answer you when you ask me this question? Noah smiled bitterly, but his eyes were sparkling. However, the sacred gear in his body is definitely not simple. I'm sure of that. According to Lias, there were differences in the power of the sacred gear. The weaker sacred gear's power was only at the level where it could affect people's lives. As for the relatively stronger sacred gear, if used well, one could even obtain a power that far exceeded that of a superior demon in a very short period of time. It could even rival the power of a god or demon king. The highest level of sacred gear was known as longleness. Noah did not know what level the sacred gear in Issei's body was, but he suspected that it was longleness. If it wasn't the kind of sacred gear that could threaten even gods and demon kings, how could it possibly cause Noah's authority, that was derived from the god of disobedience, to react? So, the probability of that guess was above 90%. Of course, Noah did not plan to tell Lias about that. As mentioned earlier, Noah only learned about the existence of sacred gear yesterday. If he were to recklessly confirm that the sacred gear in Issei's body was longleness, he would have to expose Noah's authority if Lias were to ask for the reason. For now, Noah did not plan to expose his authority to that extent. That would only arouse Lias' vigilance and distrust. Let's not talk about that for now. You, on the other hand, are in a bit of trouble right now. Noah changed the topic and changed the topic. Out of the three of you, one is by my side, and one is by Issei Hyuga's side. You're the only one left to protect you. Are you okay? Lias raised an eyebrow when she heard that. Although losing two of my kin does reduce a lot of defense around me, I'm still a superior demon. You don't think I don't have the power to protect myself, do you, Sensei? Minister, she's very strong. The kitten squeezed out such a sentence in her silent state. And Junai-senpai is also very strong. Era. Thank you for the compliment, kitten. Junai immediately replied with a smile. Yes, I'll protect you, Minister. That's for the best. Noah turned around and looked at the scenery outside the window, his deep eyes rippling slightly. After all, the days of peace are probably coming to an end, right? Ever since he reincarnated as a godslayer, Noah himself had become synonymous with battle. Coupled with his keen sensing ability, Noah already had a kind of intuition. Soon the peace that permeated around him should be coming to an end, right? For the next week it was like the calm before the storm. Noah did not encounter any strange things. Of course, he was surrounded by a group of first, second, and third-year female students every day. He also had to diagnose some diseases that did not exist in the first place in the health room. Sometimes he would be asked to check his body with a fanatical look. This experience was considered strange, and Noah experienced it almost every day. And other than staying in the health room to complete the corresponding work, Noah had nothing to do for the day, so he put his mind on living a leisurely life. Sometimes he played games with the kitten at home. Sometimes he accompanied the kitten to the supernatural research department to chat with Lias, Junai, and the others. Sometimes he was asked by unknown female students to confess to him, and then he was a little nervous and tactful. And sometimes he went to Issei Hyodo to observe his movements to see if he could dig out the true face, ability, and effect of the sacred gear in his body. This was how Noah spent the week. Gradually, it seemed that even Lias had come to the conclusion that Noah did not intend to do anything wrong. She began to let the kitten return to her original routine, which was to answer the calls of the humans who made wishes every day, to carry out the demon's work, and only return to Noah's house in the middle of the night to go to sleep. It was worth mentioning that the kitten was surprisingly like a kitten. and liked to unconsciously stick to Noah when she was sleeping. In this week, Noah had the experience of waking up in the morning to find a cute kitten suddenly in his bed, and it troubled him greatly. Because once the kitten woke up and found that she had unconsciously snuck into Noah's bed, she would throw an iron fist at Noah with a red face. Although she did not hit him once. And just like that, a week's time passed by quickly. This evening, Noah walked back to his apartment alone, and the kitten was not by his side, which was rare. For the kitten who had been sticking to Noah's side every day for the past week, it was not a common scene. I'm supposed to participate in club activities, but what kind of activities can the Supernatural Research Department have? Noah could not help but laugh as he recalled the scene where the kitten specifically came to the clinic to ask for leave from him. Well, you should give me some space sometimes. The kitten definitely did not like to stick to Noah's side. That girl was just carrying out the surveillance job that Lias had given her. And now, since the kitten was starting to not stick to Noah, it proved that Lias and the kitten were gradually starting to trust Noah, and he did not know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. In short, although Noah was not used to having a kitten by his side, he did not really feel that lonely. He slowly returned to his apartment and came to the door of his room. Just as he put his hand on the doorknob, Noah's eyes flashed, and then he opened the door as if nothing had happened and walked in. Yo! Welcome back. Congratulations on coming back. Thank you for coming back. The person who said such a hip-hop style sentence to Noah was a man with dazzling white hair sitting on the window, wearing a priest's attire. The priest had an extremely exaggerated and twisted smile on his face, and his whole body was emitting a pungent smell. The smell of blood. Chapter 589. From the priest's ferocious expression like a carnivorous beast, the stench of blood that permeated the air was so thick that it made people want to vomit. Noah had seen a lot of blood, and even his hands were stained with a lot of blood. However, he still frowned because of the smell of blood on the priest's body. His gaze towards the priest was unconsciously filled with disgust. Oh, you're not surprised? You're not afraid? Shouldn't you be hiding in a corner and trembling? Although I'm a merciful priest. But I'm trespassing. Sitting on the window, the priest who obviously invaded from the outside tilted his head. The corner of his mouth slowly formed a sadistic arc. Speaking of which, I smell it. Oh, with this nose. Shio. I smell it from your body. Hearing this, Noah's frown deepened. Looking at the priest who spoke like a mental patient without logic and rules. His voice unknowingly carried a sense of disgust. What do you smell? Haha, you don't smell it? It's a very pungent smell. The curl of the priest's lips grew wider and wider. Gradually, his expression became twisted and ferocious because of the curl. He said this sentence with a crazed tone. The smell of a trashy human who deals with evil demons all day long. After saying this, the priest reached into his arms and took out an item. It was a sword hilt without a sword body. But in the next moment, with a wung vibration, a sharp blade suddenly emerged from the sword hilt. It was a blade made of pure white light that vibrated frequently like a laser blade. Seeing this scene, Noah's eyes narrowed. Light power? Light power. Light, and other abilities that could use this type of light power. Just like the magic power of demons, light power was a power controlled by angels and fallen angels. A human who could use the power of light? You're an exorcist? A human who joined the ranks of angels or fallen angels, and thus received the power of light from angels or fallen angels, and worked for angels or fallen angels. That was an exorcist. In other words, the priest in front of him was also a human with power comparable to demons, angels, and fallen angels. My identity was suddenly exposed here? Is this how it unfolds? The priest widened his eyes, but began to twist his body in enjoyment. That's right, Lord Fred is an exorcist and a lost exorcist. Alright, don't ask me what a lost exorcist is, I won't tell you. Or rather, there's no need to tell you. Anyway, you're going to die soon and I'll kill you. After saying that, the priest, who called himself Fred, suddenly stepped on the window and leaped high into the air. He held a light sword in his hand and spun in a circle in the air. Then he mercilessly cut through the air and chopped down at Noah's head. Seeing the sharp lightsaber chopping towards his head, Noah didn't move at all. He just coldly looked at Fred, who was descending from the sky, and slowly raised his hand. I'll chop. Seeing this scene, Fred stuck out his tongue and panted like a dog. The lightsaber in his hand left a faint white mark and chopped towards Noah's direction. However, in the next moment, when Fred's lightning-fast lightsaber was less than half an inch away from Noah's head, it suddenly froze in midair as though it was frozen in space. Pa! With a crisp sound, Noah suddenly stretched out his palm and tightly grasped the lightsaber. The lightsaber that could definitely cut through rocks was actually held by an ordinary palm and stopped. Buzz 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 buzz. The vibrating lightsaber kept rubbing against each other violently. Like a chainsaw, it kept cutting Noah's palm. Facing the lightsaber, Noah sneered and suddenly tightened his grip on the lightsaber. Pung! The violently vibrating lightsaber was directly crushed by Noah as if it had exploded. Seeing this, the sadistic and twisted expression on Fred's face was completely frozen. A lightsaber that originated from the light of an angel or fallen angel. Such a lightsaber, which was a natural enemy of demons, was crushed by a palm? Who? Just as Fred froze in place, Noah's body swayed slightly, and his figure instantly turned into a blurry shadow. He clenched his right fist, and with a sharp force, he ruthlessly smashed it towards Fred's disgusting face. Pung! With a muffled sound, a figure also shot out from the space in front of Noah. While spitting out a mouthful of blood, it flew out of Noah's room through the window at a faster speed than when it came. At the same time, another figure also flashed out of the room, stepped on the edge of the window and shot down, catching up with the figure in front. Pung! A foot heavily stepped on the face of the figure that flew out, kicking the exorcist who was wearing a priest's costume to the ground. His body suddenly fell to the ground and smashed into the ground, stirring up a lot of smoke and dust. At this time, Noah, who had given the disgusting priest a kick, landed lightly on the ground. With a thud sound, he quietly landed and looked at the place where the smoke and dust was stirred up. Although I don't know how powerful the so-called light is, unfortunately, you used it on the wrong person. As a godslayer, Noah's body originally had an extremely foul resistance to curses. It was not only immune to magic, but also immune to magic, yin-yang and other curses with mystical power. Unless it could reach the level of a god or was effective against a god, any mystical power would have no effect on the body of a godslayer. And was the light of an angel or a fallen angel stronger than the power of a god? The answer, of course, was no. In this way, even if Noah used his hand to grab it, the so-called light would be ineffective. Therefore, instead of using a light sword formed by the light of an angel or a fallen angel, it was better to use an ordinary dagger to stab Noah. That way, Noah's body could be left with a wound. An exorcist who acts against humans, and with such a strong smell of blood, there must be a lot of lives that have died unjustly by your hands, right? Noah said to himself. Then if I kill you, you shouldn't have any complaints. Saying such a sentence, Noah raised one of his hands towards the place where the thick smoke and dust was, and a magic circle immediately appeared in front of his palm. Just as Noah was about to directly deal with the disgusting priest who had suddenly invaded his house with a magic cannon, a cry of surprise sounded from behind him. Noah's hand movements suddenly stopped. He turned his head and looked behind him, and the next moment he was stunned. He saw that in the corner of the street behind him, a figure was standing there without him knowing, covering her mouth with a look of horror. It was a young girl who was about 16 or 17 years old. The young girl was wearing a rather gorgeously decorated nun's robe. Compared to the usual black nun's robe, she had an extra sense of holiness like a saintess. The young girl's head was also wearing a veil that was usually present in the nun's robe. However, even if she was wearing a veil, Noah could still see clearly. He saw the young girl's waist-length golden hair that shone dazzlingly under the light of the setting sun. Father freed! The young girl's cry of surprise sounded again, telling Noah that she was in cahoots with the disgusting priest. Pa-dash! At this moment, accompanied by the sound of something breaking on the ground, a burst of dazzling light enveloped the entire space, causing Noah to involuntarily close his eyes. Then the bloody aura disappeared from the range of Noah's sensing ability. Not long after, the dazzling light slowly dissipated. Noah opened his eyes without a change in expression. First, he glanced at the direction of the priest who disappeared without a trace, then his gaze turned towards the blonde girl who had also just opened her eyes. When the blonde girl met Noah's gaze, she couldn't help but take a step back. then immediately turned around and fled in another direction. Noah didn't chase after the blonde girl, and fell into silence. Chapter 590. An exorcist invaded your place? The next day, in the Supernatural Research Department, Noah told Leah and the others about his encounter with Fred yesterday, and almost everyone was shocked. Especially Kitten, whose cute face showed an uncomfortable expression. No wonder there was a terrible smell when I came home last night. Noah wanted to tell Kitten that it was his house, not hers. But before that, Leah spoke with a frown. To think that an exorcist from the church would sneak into my territory. How unpleasant. As a place of faith in God, the church was actually directly affiliated with the heavens, and was the representative of God and angels in the human world. As mentioned earlier, demons, angels and fallen angels had been fighting a great war for the hegemony of the world since ancient times, but no one could do anything to each other. Later on, the war directly fell into a stalemate, and evolved into a war of attrition. The demons, angels and fallen angels were greatly weakened, and all of them fell into a predicament of insufficient combat power. In the end, the war ended in an inconclusive manner, and the greatly weakened demons, angels and fallen angels were reduced to the point where they had to rely on humans to survive. Under such circumstances, the demons developed technology that could allow other races to reincarnate into demons, and thus replenish the number of demons. On the other hand, the heavens, led by God, cultivated exorcists through various churches in the human world. Therefore, the church was an organization directly affiliated with the heavens, and even took orders from the heavens. Naturally, the number one enemy of the exorcists was the demons. Although the exorcists were all ordinary humans, they possessed the ability to wield light that was bestowed upon them by the angels. To the demons, light was highly toxic, and if they came into direct contact with the power of light of an exorcist, they would continue to suffer damage. Therefore, even if the exorcists were only a group of humans, they were still a great enemy of the demons because they could use the power of light. But that disgusting priest named Fred shouldn't be an exorcist of a subordinate church, Noah said after pondering for a while. He said himself that he's a lost exorcist. The lost exorcist? Leah's exclaimed in surprise. It was not just Leah's. Other than Yuto Kiba, who was with Itsun Kotu, Tatsun Himashima, and Kitten looked at each other with a serious expression. If it's a lost exorcist, it's a little troublesome. Hearing the conversation between Jurai Himajima and Kitten, Noah asked, "Speaking of which, what's the difference between a lost exorcist and an ordinary exorcist?" Over the past week, Noah had obtained quite a lot of information about this world from the members of the Supernatural Research Department. However, this did not include the lost exorcist. The so-called lost actually refers to those beings who have left their original group, Leah's explained. Just like us demons, we also have dependents. If our dependents don't listen to their master's orders and leave their master, then we will call them lost demons. The church's exorcists are also divided into two types. Jurai Himashima continued Leah's words and said to Noah, "One is the regular exorcists who have received the blessings of the gods in the heavens and obtained the right to exercise the power of light. They borrow the power of gods or angels to destroy demons, which is also quite a threat to demons. Then there's the other type, the lost exorcist." Leah's narrowed her eyes. Exorcism is originally a sacred ritual in the name of the gods to destroy demons. However, occasionally there will be exorcists who kill demons for fun. They feel joy from the bottom of their hearts in the act of killing demons. This behavior is considered blasphemy against life. Usually, such people will be expelled by the churches that believe in the gods, or even directly regarded as harmful and dealt with in secret. There are no exceptions. Dealt with? Noah looked up. In other words, they will be directly executed by the church? That's right. Leah's nodded. However, there are also some existences with extraordinary strength who can survive and become the fallen angels' subordinates. Hearing this, Noah more or less understood. Exorcists were originally blessed by the gods to be able to exercise the power of gods and angels, which was the power of light, to destroy demons. If they betrayed the church, it was equivalent to betraying the gods. Naturally, such blessings would no longer exist. In order to maintain the power that should have been lost, the exorcist could only choose to rely on the fallen angel. The so-called fallen angel was actually an existence formed after the angels who originally belonged to the heavens had evil thoughts that they should not have and fell into depravity. Although such existences were expelled by the heavens, they still had the ability to exercise the power of light in the past. As long as they relied on the fallen angel, even if they betrayed the gods and the church, the exorcists could still obtain the new power of light from the fallen angel and continue to exercise the power of the exorcists. The so-called lost exorcists are those who rely on the fallen angel. Leah's bit her thumbnail. Dangerous exorcists who hunt demons for fun and attack demons, and humans who summon demons under the protection of the fallen angel. Although they are not regular exorcists, they are still extremely dangerous. No, you're wrong. Noah could not help but correct her. Because they are not restricted by so many rules like when they were in the church, lost exorcists are even more dangerous than regular exorcists. In fact, the lost exorcists I met yesterday were simply lunatics. They would not hesitate to kill humans who were not demons. That's the real danger. Leah's, Junai, and Kitten nodded in agreement at the same time. It was also because of this reason that when Leah's and the others heard that Noah did not encounter a regular exorcist, but a lost exorcist, they were surprised and serious. However, a mere exorcist could only make Leah's take it a little more seriously. Come to think of it, Leah's did not think that the other party could threaten a superior demon. Although Fred's strength was not bad, it was true that he could not threaten a superior demon. An existence of that level could only attract Noah's attention. Noah was more concerned about the blonde nun, who seemed to be in cahoots with the priest yesterday. Although it was only for a moment, Noah did make eye contact with the nun. So Noah still remembered her eyes until now. It was a pair of extremely pure and sparkling eyes that were as innocent as a child's. To be honest, Noah really could not imagine that the nun was with that disgusting priest. Or was she just using her appearance to deceive people? But that pair of pure and innocent eyes was definitely not something that could be faked. So what was going on? The more he thought about it, the more Noah found himself concerned about the nun. At that moment, Noah shook his head, shook off the inexplicable irritation in his heart, and said to Leah's, "All in all, that lost priest is quite dangerous. Even if he can't threaten us, he is still a ghost-like existence to ordinary humans. Yesterday he attacked me, so it wouldn't be strange at all when he attacks the humans who often summon you and have made a contract with you." After hearing Noah's words, Leah's expression immediately became serious. "You're right. If I let that priest attack the customers in my territory, then I, Leah's Gimli, would not be worthy of my surname." With that, Leah's turned her head and looked at Jurai Himashima. "Jurai, investigate the priest's whereabouts. Also tell Kana so that she can be prepared." "Yes, Minister." Jurai Himashima bowed respectfully, and then walked out of the Supernatural Research Department. "I'm sorry, Sensei." The kitten also bowed her head and apologized to Noah. "It's all because of me that you were treated as a human who often interacts with demons and were targeted by that priest. From now on I'll protect you." "Well." Noah smiled bitterly, reached out his hand, and patted the kitten's head. "Then I'll leave it to you." It was only then that the kitten nodded in satisfaction. Even Riaz, who was beside her, could not help but laugh. The nun's appearance appeared in Noah's mind again. If there's a chance, why don't I try to interact with that nun? Chapter 591. In the evening, Noah exited the academy and walked back to his apartment. He looked at the empty space beside him and could not help but let out a long sigh. He said something cute and cool like, "I'll protect you from now on." In the end, didn't he abandon me the moment he was summoned by Lilith? Just like yesterday, Kitten did not return with Noah today. There was no other reason. Lilith sent Kitten out to patrol, as if she wanted to see if she could find the person who invaded her territory. Noah's encounter with Freed was not a small matter. After all, not only was Freed a dangerous person, but the person behind him was also a great enemy to Lilith. As a lost exorcist, there was no doubt that Freed was backed by a fallen angel. And since Freed had invaded Lilith's territory, the fallen angel behind him might be here as well. So, just in case, Lilith still sent Kitten out to patrol the area. At least she could be at ease after confirming that there were no traces of enemies around Komodo Academy. Actually, Shiba Yudo was more suitable for this kind of job. Unfortunately, Hyudo Kazunari, the wielder of the sacred gear, undoubtedly needed more protection than Noah. Since the fallen angel was likely to invade the city, Hyudo Kazunari, the wielder of the sacred gear, was likely to be targeted by the fallen angel as well. Therefore, not only could Shiba Yudo not leave Hyudo Kazunari's side at this time, he also needed to protect him more than before. As for Himejima Junai, Yamato Nadeshiko was Lyatha's most capable follower, so she naturally had to stay by her side to protect and support her. Hence, the only person left to patrol was Kitten. This was also a decision Lyath made after she determined that Noah did not need protection. A lost exorcist who has the ability to escape the church's pursuit and join the fallen angel's side is obviously much stronger than the average exorcist. Against such an opponent, not only can you escape unscathed, but you can also defeat him. Even if the fallen angel comes looking for you, they won't be able to do anything to you, right? That was what Lyath said. However, when she said that, she looked at Noah with a meaningful gaze. Presumably, the kitten had already told Liaz that Noah was a sorcerer, allowing Liaz to have a preliminary understanding of Noah's strength. That was why she was acting like that. Noah was not surprised by this. Or rather, if the kitten had chosen to help Noah hide the fact that Noah could use magic, wouldn't Noah be surprised? But it's good that Kitten isn't around. Noah's mind once again flashed with the pure eyes of the blonde nun. If that's the case, I can try to find that nun. Thinking of this, Noah's heart was a lot more balanced. He quickened his pace, walked into the apartment building, and walked in the direction of his room. Noah planned to walk around the city before dinner. Although this method was like looking for a needle in a haystack, Noah could only rely on luck if he wanted to find the nun without detailed information and knowing the nun's movements. Well, it's not very likely that I'll find her just like that. When Noah walked out of the elevator and arrived at the apartment floor where his room was, the scene that appeared in front of him made Noah's eyes widen. He was completely stunned on the spot. Faintly, one could see that Noah's eyes were completely shocked, which was rarely seen. That was because the scene that appeared in front of him really made Noah, who had just had a certain goal but did not have much hope, speechless. Ah! Amidst such a soft cry, a young girl wearing a nun's outfit that wasn't all black was waiting for something in front of Noah's room. She noticed that Noah was standing in front of the elevator door with a face full of astonishment. Her beautiful face showed a trace of nervousness. After a while, the nun seemed to have reacted. After being at a loss for a while, she mustered up her courage and bowed to Noah. Hi. Hello. I'm Aisha Aljet. In the next second, the pure nun looked at Noah with a firm expression and said so. Although it's rude, but please take me in. This was the first time Noah and Isha met for the first time. It was a meeting that would make Noah laugh every time he thought of this scene in the future, and Isha would be so ashamed that she wanted to die. The sky gradually darkened in Noah's room. Noah and the little nun named Isha sat face to face at the small round table in the middle of the room. There were 2 bowls of rice and a few dishes on the table, all of which were very common household dishes. However, Isha only stared at the rice and dishes in front of her without moving for a long time. Noah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't just look at it. Although it's not delicious, it's enough to fill your stomach. So if you don't mind, you can eat some. Mind? Mind what? Why would I? Isha immediately shook her head in a panic. She hesitated for a while before speaking carefully. Then I won't hold back. After that, Isha picked up the bowl of rice in front of her, but it seemed like she didn't know how to use chopsticks. She only held the chopsticks tightly in her hand like she was holding a spoon. She didn't know how to use chopsticks and was at a loss for what to do. Noah couldn't help but laugh out loud. Chopsticks aren't used like this, but like this. At that moment, Noah acted as if he was giving a demonstration. He explained to Isha while demonstrating. After about 3 minutes, Isha finally learned how to use chopsticks. Thus, Isha used some stiff movements to take a mouthful of rice. Under Noah's guidance, she added some side dishes and began to chew. The next second, Aisha's eyes lit up. So, delicious. Is that so? The smile on Noah's face turned into a bitter smile. You don't have to comfort me. I know how my culinary skills are. Although it's not to the extent that I can't eat it, it's definitely not to the extent that people would praise it as delicious. No, it's really delicious, Isha quickly said. I used to only eat bread and soup in the church. The rice that Mr. Noah makes is really delicious. Unfortunately, there was no need to cook rice at all. All he had to do was wash the rice and put it into the rice cooker. There was no need to test his culinary skills at all. Noah, who felt that it was a little strange, could only touch his nose. If that's the case, you should eat more. Okay, I'll definitely taste it carefully. Isha ate one mouthful after another, eating with great relish. Looking at Isha, who was like a little squirrel with her cheeks puffed up, using chopsticks with stiff movements to pick up side dishes with difficulty and eat with rice, Noah became more and more suspicious of why she would wallow in the mire with that disgusting priest. No, it was hard to say whether she was wallowing in the mire with him or not. It was also possible that Isha didn't know what kind of person Fried was and what kind of shady business he was doing. She was just blindly coaxed by him. Such a possibility wasn't impossible. In short, Noah felt that Isha shouldn't really wallow in the mire with Fried. Otherwise, this nun wouldn't have such pure and innocent eyes and naive and romantic actions. Of course, this was just Noah's personal feeling. Noah, who felt that he had to ask clearly, chose to ask after considering his choice of words. Then Isha, first of all, please tell me, why did you appear in front of my house? Isha, who was enjoying her meal, abruptly stopped what she was doing, and a dejected look appeared on her face. After slightly lowering the bowl in her hand, Isha lowered her head and said such a sentence. Because I don't know where I can go. Don't know where you can go? Noah also lowered the bowl in his hand and looked at Isha opposite him. Can you tell me in detail? Hearing Noah's words, Isha seemed to be a little hesitant, but it seemed that she had already made up her mind before coming to Noah's place. In the end, she met Noah's eyes. Actually, I escaped. Chapter 592. Aisha Aljet was born in Europe and was abandoned by her parents at the entrance of a church. It was a church that functioned as an orphanage. Her parents, who were unable to raise her, probably wanted this pure and innocent girl to be adopted by the church along with the other orphans. Under such circumstances, Isha grew up under the care of the nuns, and under the influence of the people and environment around her, she developed an unusually devout faith. She had always believed in the God of the Bible. Then perhaps the young girl's devout faith was discovered by God, and a miracle was sent down. When Aisha was 8 years old, a force appeared out of thin air on her body. It was a power that could completely heal an injured person and restore them to their original state. Aisha, who possessed such power, was discovered by the members of the church by chance. Since then, Aisha's life had changed. Isha was brought to the headquarters of the Catholic Church. Then, with the title of Saintess with the power of healing, she was presented to the public by the Catholic clergy. The church asked her to heal the discomfort of the visiting believers, saying that it was a blessing from God. Aisha firmly believed in this saying, because if it wasn't for God's blessing, an extremely ordinary girl wouldn't have such power. Therefore, driven by her devout faith and her gentle and kind nature, Isha accepted the job without hesitation. As a result, the young girl became the saintess who was worshipped by many believers and spread by word of mouth. Aisha was happy that her power could be used in such a way. The girl had always been grateful to the Almighty God for granting her such an ability. However, as the saintess, one day she fell into hell because of this power. You healed an injured devil? Noah was startled when he heard Aisha's words. Then he became suspicious. Is there a problem with that? Noah asked this question subconsciously. When she realized how serious the consequences of this sentence were, Aisha's smile became a little sad. Because God's power won't heal an evil devil. That's right. Whether in the Bible or other myths, the most common thing was the hostile relationship between God and the devil of hell. For the Catholic Church, who believed in light, devils were undoubtedly dark and evil existences that would make humans fall. In fact, the heavens led by God did frequently fight with the devils and fallen angels living in the underworld. They even fought to the extent of mutual destruction before stopping. This caused the devils, angels, and fallen angels to be still recovering from the losses caused by the war. They were reduced to a tragic situation where they couldn't continue to live without humans. Therefore, for the church that believed in God, the power to heal even the devils who were not blessed by God was no longer a blessing and a gift from God, but the so-called power of heresy. Noah could imagine what Aisha's fate would be in the end. In the world of the God-slayers, the witches who once served the Mother Earth were given the title of witches by the Christian religion, and were hunted down. Therefore, Aisha, who was originally worshipped as a saintess, was regarded as a witch because she could heal the devils. It was entirely possible that she was expelled or even killed by the Catholic Church. The saddest thing was that no one in the church that relied on Aisha's healing ability to attract a large number of believers chose to protect her. The members of the church who used to be kind to Aisha had completely turned their kind gazes on her into disgust and fear. It was as if they were putting on a show. This was because Aisha had been labeled as a witch by the church. It must be that my faith is not enough, so God didn't bless me, right? Aisha said to Noah with a smile. However, no matter how one looked at it, that smile was too sad. So, it's all my fault. From Aisha's smiling face and extremely sincere tone, as if she couldn't control her emotions because of her bad past being exposed, Noah heard that this sentence was completely from the heart of the girl. In other words, even after being treated like that, the girl in front of him still believed in the so-called God and took all the blame on herself. Like those believers, she believed that one day she would be saved by God. However, the girl named Aisha probably didn't know what kind of effect her words and behavior had on the only man present at the scene. Naturally, Aisha also didn't notice that Noah's hand under the table slowly clenched. He lowered his head, and an extremely cold light flashed through his dark eyes. At this moment, Noah only felt that his limbs suddenly surged with power, and his body and mind had completely entered into a state of combat. In the past, this kind of reaction would only occur when God, the archenemy of the God Slayer, appeared. However, now Noah took the initiative to trigger this state. Because, as the God Slayer, Noah's heart surged with strong hostility. The outpouring of hostility toward the so-called God. It was because he had confirmed that Noah's heart was filled with enmity towards his mortal enemy, God, that Noah's body that existed as a God Slayer automatically entered a combat state, and his body and mind were filled with power. After all, the prey had already been identified, right? Well, Noah, who felt his body full of power, murmured to himself with a calm expression. If this is how the so-called God Slayer used the so-called Holy Maiden to collect believers, and when something happened, he labeled her as a witch and banished her, treating humans as playthings, then there is no need to exist. Aisha, who didn't know that her experience had turned the Almighty God from an omnipotent master into a pitiful prey, tilted her head. Mr. Noah, did you just say something? No, nothing, don't mind it. Noah smiled and shook his head. After calmly allowing his body full of power to return to normal, he looked straight at Aisha. So, after being banished by the church, you who have no other choice, can only choose to seek refuge with the fallen angel? Yes. Aisha's face was gloomy. Because I don't know where I can go. The same sentence, but Noah, who already understood the whole story, heard a different emotion from it. Aisha must be very uncomfortable, right? She was labeled as a holy maiden without permission, became a tool for the church to collect believers, and was kicked off the altar for no reason. She became desperate and could only seek refuge with the fallen angel. This kind of experience was too dark for a young girl who had not yet reached adulthood. But the girl never complained and still believed in the so-called God. If the so-called God didn't want to respond to the girl's prayer and let the church under his control do whatever they wanted, then there was indeed no need to exist. And Noah finally understood why Aisha suddenly appeared in front of him and asked him to take her in. For this kind-hearted girl, the actions of a disgusting priest and a fallen angel like Freddy, who could kill people at will, were absolutely unsightly. That was why Aisha said that she escaped from the fallen angel. Sigh. Noah couldn't help but sigh. Although he hadn't confirmed whether what Aisha said was true or false, Noah still chose to believe it. The reason was probably because of the pure and innocent look in the eyes of the young woman named Aisha, even though she had met with such a tragic fate. This reminded Noah of the time when he was called a shelter. Those children who bore the same tragic fate and were hated by the world were still innocent. In this case, what reason did Noah have to reject the request of the girl in front of him? I understand. Noah suddenly smiled. If you don't mind, you can stay. Really? Aisha cried tears of joy, and there were tears at the corner of her eyes. Can I really stay here? Noah smiled and nodded, letting Aisha lower her head. Not long after, a teardrop dripped down her face. Seeing this, Noah silently came to Aisha's side and patted her back. Sobs slowly echoed in the room and didn't stop for a long time. Chapter 593. Standing at the door, it was obvious that Kitten, who had just returned, was carrying a backpack on her back. However, she cast an extremely sharp gaze in front of her, and a trace of hostility faintly appeared on her doll-like delicate face. Under Kitten's sharp gaze, Aisha twisted her body uneasily. She didn't know what to do with her slender hands. One moment she was clutching her clothes, and the next moment she was clutching them tightly together. She appeared to be very flustered, and she cast a pleading gaze at Noah. Almost at the same time, the kitten's sharp eyes also turned to Noah. "What's going on?" From the kitten's low tone, Noah heard a hint of displeasure and confusion. There was no doubt that the kitten seemed to have a very serious hostility towards Aisha, who appeared in Noah's house. But that wasn't anything strange. Just like the church, which believed in God, regarded the devil as a target that must be eradicated, the devil naturally regarded the church as an enemy. Because she didn't know what happened to Aisha, the kitten didn't know that Aisha was no longer a member of the church. However, the kitten could still recognize the nun's outfit that Aisha was wearing. Therefore, the kitten regarded Aisha as a member of the church. Of course, even if it was explained clearly, the kitten's hostility was probably still there. After all, Aisha, who was expelled by the church, was still relying on the fallen angel until now. And for the devil, the fallen angel was also an enemy. In other words, in the kitten's opinion, the sudden appearance in her house? No matter how he looked at it, Aisha did not look like one of them anymore. It was understandable for her to have this reaction. "Okay, kitten, put down your hostility first." Noah had no choice but to say so. "From today onwards, Aisha will also live with us. You have to get along well." My name is Aisha Aljet." Aisha reacted and quickly bowed. "Please take care of me." In the face of Aisha's bow, the kitten was silent. Her beautiful eyebrows were obviously wrinkled together, telling others how complicated her mood was. After a while, the kitten looked at Noah closely. "Teacher, are you planning to betray us?" "You're wrong, kitten." Looking at the kitten's serious expression, Noah knew that he would not be forgiven for saying perfunctory words. He closed his eyes and then suddenly opened them. "I've said from the beginning, I'm just an ordinary teacher working in the Horse King Academy. So, I'm not with the angels and fallen angels, and I'm also not a companion of you devils. I hope you don't forget that." As soon as he said this, the kitten's emotionless face slightly changed. For Kitten, who never showed her emotions on her face, her reaction was enough to see how much her heart was shaken by Noah's words. However, what Noah said was not wrong. From the very beginning, Noah had said that he was just an ordinary teacher who was going to take up a post in Chariot King Academy. He had no power behind him, nor did he have anyone to back him up. He was completely innocent and had no connections with anyone. That was why Leah was not worried about letting Noah stay in Horse King Academy. However, the kitten seemed to have unknowingly taken Noah as one of her own. In fact, it was not just the kitten. Even Leah was starting to let down her guard against Noah and chose to trust Noah. However, trust was one thing and choosing a side was another. Noah was just an ordinary human. Even if he was close to the Jamanli's kin, it did not mean that he was completely on the demon's side. This was something that had to be made clear. Otherwise, there was no telling when Leah and her party would feel betrayed, because Noah would have a good relationship with another angel or fallen angel in the future, if they categorized Noah as their comrade without permission. Demons, angels, and fallen angels. These three factions can fight however they want. It has nothing to do with me. Noah made it clear almost ruthlessly. I'm on good terms with you demons now, and it's fine if you treat me as a companion. I quite like being with you, but if you restrict me from interacting with your enemies because of that, wouldn't that be too much? The kitten fell silent again. That was because he finally understood how excessive his statement of betrayal was. Kitten, please remember that I don't belong to any faction. I just have a good relationship with the Jamanli's kin. Seeing the kitten's silence, Noah sighed. You are my friends. If you are hurt by anyone, I definitely don't mind getting justice for you. But that's only because of the relationship between you and me, not the relationship between me and the demons. Aisha is also my friend and she won't hurt you. So why can't I interact with her? Why can't I let her stay with me? Why is being with her betraying you? After a series of rhetorical questions, Kitten was at a loss for words. In short, come in first. Noah also realized that it was too realistic to continue. He shook his head and waved at the kitten. As a cohabitant who is going to live together in the future, you should first understand the reason why Aisha is here before making a judgment. Hearing this, the kitten, who had been at a loss for words, raised her head. Her big watery eyes flashed with relief. After glancing at Aisha, who was looking at Noah emotionally, she nodded and walked into the room. I'm sorry. 10 minutes later, the kitten, who had learned all about Aisha's past from Noah, lowered her head to Aisha and apologized. I didn't know that you had left the angels and fallen angels for such a reason. I'm really sorry for being hostile to you. No, it's okay. Aisha shook her head quickly, then as if praying, she clasped her hands in front of her chest, showing a gentle smile like the Holy Mother. I have a new place now, and I'm no longer a person who is not favored by the Lord. Please raise your head and get along with me. The kitten nodded heavily. I will get along well with Aisha. Kitten-chan. Aisha was extremely touched, and Noah couldn't help but feel a little exasperated. Wasn't this girl a little too naive and innocent? He didn't think about whether the kitten's words were from the bottom of her heart. How could she be so touched? Of course, the kitten's words were completely from the bottom of her heart. Noah could guarantee this. Thinking of this, Noah suddenly remembered. By the way, Aisha, you said that you have the power to heal everything. What kind of power is that? Leah said that in this world, there were basically only 3 types of people who had power that humans could not possess. One was the holder of the sacred gear, one was the mage, and the other was the exorcist. And other than these 3 types of humans, the rest of the humans generally did not have special powers. That's right, under normal circumstances. In that case, was Aisha an exceptional human with special powers that exceeded the above 3 types of humans? Noah was quite curious about this. However, the power that Aisha displayed next surprised Noah and the kitten. That, Mr. Noah, would you like to take a look? Aisha once again clasped her hands in front of her as if she was praying. The next moment, on the fingers of Aisha's clasped hands, a pair of rings that emitted a soft green light suddenly flashed. That's... Noah was surprised. Aisha. Even the kitten looked at Aisha in a daze and said in surprise, Are you a holder of the sacred gear? Aisha nodded repeatedly, making Noah's heart skip a beat, and he asked, Aisha, you said before that after being expelled by the church, you sought refuge with the fallen angels, right? Yes. Aisha was startled and then nodded. Seeing this, Noah immediately asked, Then, did you seek refuge with the fallen angels yourself? Or did the fallen angels find you themselves? No, I didn't seek refuge on my own accord, Aisha said with some confusion. I met the organization of lost exorcists after I was expelled, and then I was introduced to the fallen angels. Noah's eyes narrowed slightly, and he began to ponder in his heart. It seemed that Aisha's matter would not end so easily. Chapter 594. Late at night. In the dark room, Aisha and the kitten slept together on the bed that should have belonged to Noah. They breathed regularly, closed their eyes, and fell asleep. Noah was lying on the bed on the floor, and his eyes were also closed, as if he had fallen into a deep sleep. However, at a certain moment, Noah suddenly opened his eyes without the slightest warning. His dark eyes, deeper than the moonlight, flashed a light in the dim space. He slowly got up and put on his clothes. Just as Noah was about to walk in the direction of the door, a deliberately suppressed voice sounded slightly. Teacher. Noah stopped, turned his head, and looked in the direction of the bed. The kitten, who was wearing coffee-colored pajamas with a picture of a cat on the chest, had woken up and was looking straight at Noah. Are you going out? Noah nodded with a smile and put on the coat in his hand. Go out and deal with the annoying rats. The kitten nodded without any surprise. Do you need my help? No need. Noah stepped forward, came to the bed, stretched out his hand, gently touched the kitten's head, and said softly, You stay here and protect Aisha. If it was a week ago, the kitten would have slapped Noah's hand away when he made such an intimate gesture. However, in the past week, the kitten often got into Noah's bed when she was in a daze. Unknowingly, She no longer rejected Noah's touch. It was like a cat who was wary of humans was gradually tamed, and began to show a docile side to her master. Therefore, under Noah's touch, the kitten's face collapsed little by little. Although she did not show an expression of enjoyment, she was indeed very docile. Then, please hurry up and get rid of those rats that have irritating malice and wake up people who are sleeping soundly. Since even the cat who specializes in catching rats asked me to do so, of course I will obey. Noah suddenly smiled and waved his hand. Then I will be back. Leaving these words behind, Noah gently opened the door under Kitten's gaze and walked out. Then he closed the door behind him, returning the dark room to silence once again. The dark night continued on. However, in this dark night, there was something even darker than the surrounding darkness. They were like the wings of a crow, completely black in color. Several people with such a pair of wings flew from the night sky at high speed, flapping the pair of black wings, like dark elves who came out to play at night, slowly landing on the street in front of an apartment below. Not long after, a group of 4 people with black wings on their backs came to the front of the apartment and floated in the air. It was a group of 1 man and 3 women. This group not only floated in the air in front of the apartment, but also seemed to be in order to distinguish each other's position. At the front of the group, it was obvious that the leader of the group was a girl with long black hair and a voluptuous figure. "Hey Caravana, is Isha really here?" "Yes, Liney-sama." A big sister with a very serious appearance and a better figure than the former answered. "The trace of aura ends here, so Isha should be here." "But, isn't this the place where that useless guy Fred was heavily injured?" The leader named Liney-sama held one side of her face as if she was lying on an invisible bed, and very leisurely continued to ask. "I remember it was a human. A mere human. Only that useless guy Fred would be beaten to the point of running back. Liney-sama, you don't have to mind." A loli with 2 golden ponytails, who looked to be around 13 or 14 years old, said with a playful tone as if she was making fun of something. "That kind of trash. Liney-sama doesn't need to make a move. As long as I, Middlet, am here, he can forget about touching Liney-sama. There is also me, Donathik." The one who spoke with a deep voice was an uncle wearing a thick overcoat and a round top hat. "Leave the matter of the battle to us. Liney-sama only needs to continue the preparations for the ritual afterwards." Hearing the word ritual, the fallen angel named Liney-sama immediately laughed as if she was intoxicated. "That's right. The most important thing is not a human, nor is it that useless priest, nor is it Aisha. I just need to get the sacred gear in her body, the power called Twilight Healing that can heal everything. And that will be enough." "That's right." Middlet nodded repeatedly in agreement. "As long as we can successfully use the ritual to extract the sacred gear from the nun's body and transplant it into our body, with that kind of healing ability, Liney-sama will definitely be put in an important position by the higher-ups. At that time, Liney-sama's position among the fallen angels will also sharply rise." Caravana echoed. "And we can also rise to the top of the fallen angels. Perhaps Liney-sama can also obtain the approval of Sir Governor." Donathik once again spat out deep words. As long as Liney-sama is favored by Sir Governor, then Liney-sama's position among the fallen angels will definitely rise. Hearing that, the intoxicated expression on Liney-sama's face became more and more intense, as if she was enjoying the flattery of her subordinates. And that appearance also admitted that Liney-sama's wishful thinking was exactly the same as what her 3 subordinates said. Unfortunately, these fallen angels didn't know. Their conversation had already been heard by the 5th person present. The next moment, such a leisurely voice drilled into the ears of everyone present. "So that's how it is. When I heard that Aisha was invited to join the Fallen Angel organization, I suspected that this matter was not that simple. I originally thought that it was just the fallen angels who fancied Aisha's ability and found her. I didn't expect there to be such an inside story. Should I thank you for saying it yourself?" Caravana, Middlet, and Donathik were suddenly shocked. The intoxicated expression on Liney-sama's face also disappeared. She raised her eyes and looked at the source of the voice. "Yo, fallen angels, hello." Saying such a sentence, Noah sat on the railing at the front of the apartment's rooftop. With one foot still propped on it, he bent his knees in front of him. As if meeting an old friend, He stretched out his hand and greeted the group of fallen angels led by Line-sama. This is the first time we've met each other, and it will also be the last time we meet, so I'll say hello to you. The corners of Line-sama's mouth suddenly rose slowly, forming a somewhat cruel and cold arc. Who are you? This question doesn't seem to need to be asked. You just need to know that you are the human who defeated Fred, right? Yes, as long as you know this level of information, there is no need to ask about the name and there is no need to know. Noah spread his hands and smiled faintly. Because I don't want you to keep thinking about me after you die. And I don't have the time to keep remembering the names of some low-level members of the fallen angel. These words directly angered all the fallen angels present, including Line-sama. Even if their attitude was high, the 4 people here were indeed just low-level members of the fallen angel. Therefore, Line-sama wanted to get Aisha's sacred gear and climb to the top of the fallen angel. Being exposed like this, how could the fallen angels not be angry? TSK, you really dare to say it? Middle shouted loudly. A trifling human, don't think that just because you defeated a useless exorcist, you can put pressure on us. Humans are such creatures. Caravana's voice also carried a trace of anger. Just because you have a little ability, you think so highly of yourself, really disgusting. No matter what, he is just a human. Donasic pressed his hand on his hat and coldly said, "Let's quickly deal with him and forget about it." Line-sama was even more direct. Her expression was languid and fierce as she raised her hand. "Kill him." "Yes." The 3 fallen angels immediately rushed toward Noah. Looking at the 3 fallen angels, Noah raised his head with a smile on his face. That smile was unusually cold. Chapter 595. Like missiles falling from the sky, the 3 fallen angels named Caravana, Middlet, and Donathic seemed to want to surround Noah, who was leisurely sitting on the railing of the rooftop of the apartment, without giving him the slightest chance of survival. They bypassed the 3 perfect trajectories and flew down. Hum! In the sound of the air vibrating in unison, light particles suddenly condensed in the hands of the 3 fallen angels, shooting in the direction of Noah, forming a rough-looking spear. It was a spear composed of light. Moreover, it was not the kind of spear used in close combat, but more like a javelin used for throwing. Holding such a spear of light, the 3 fallen angels suddenly stopped flying. They immediately raised the spear of light in their hands high above their heads and threw it in the direction of Noah. Whoosh! The 3 extremely powerful spears of light cut through the air, causing a sharp sound to resound in the space in unison. They were like meteors falling from the sky, shooting in front of Noah. Facing the 3 dazzling spears of light, Noah's figure didn't even move. In the eyes of Caravana, Middlet, and Donathic, it was like Noah had no way to capture the trajectory of the spears of light. He couldn't react at all. Suddenly, a mocking expression appeared on the faces of the 3 fallen angels. However, in the next second, when the 3 dazzling spears of light mercilessly fell on Noah's body, the mocking expression on the faces of the 3 fallen angels completely froze. Bang bang bang! Like fireworks that were suddenly detonated, the 3 sharp spears of light fell on Noah's body. Not only were they unable to leave the slightest trace on his mortal body, but they also seemed to have hit something extremely solid. They directly exploded, scattering light all over the sky. Caravana, Middlet, and Donathic's expressions changed dramatically. What dash? Seeing this scene with her own eyes, Laneri, who was still floating in the air like lying on an invisible bed, suddenly got up. Her pair of eyes suddenly widened and she screamed, "Impossible! Impossible!" Noah, who was sitting on the balcony railing of the apartment building, smiled indifferently. "These are your last words? It's quite concise, isn't it?" After speaking, Noah still didn't move, but a burst of terrifying magic power suddenly burst out from his body like a wave, spreading in all directions. In the next moment, around Noah's body, a gorgeous magic array quickly rotated and emerged from the space. It was like a turret, aiming at the 3 fallen angels in the air, Caravana, Middlet, and Donathic. Seeing that it's rare for you to perform a standard throwing kung fu, although it's a bit boring, I'll return a magic cannon. Under the shocked gazes of the 3 fallen angels, Noah sneered coldly. "Don't worry, I won't use my full strength." After speaking, the gorgeous magic arrays that covered the space around Noah suddenly flashed with a faint light. In the vibration of the air, they gathered the magic power that rose from Noah's body. Then a beam of magic power soared into the sky and burst into the sky. Like a flash, it drowned the relatively small bodies of Kalavanna, Middlet, and Donathik. No. In the screams that resounded through the sky, the low-level members of the three fallen angels were directly drowned by the flash of magic power. They were annihilated in the light of magic power that was full of terrifying impact. As if they had never appeared, they completely disappeared from this world. The gorgeous magic arrays that covered his body began to dissipate. The terrifying magic power that rose from Noah's body also gradually converged. This part of the world once again returned to its state of silence. However, the atmosphere that permeated the air was no longer heavy. Instead, it was as if they were in the depths of hell. No. Impossible. After witnessing her three subordinates being completely annihilated in less than 10 seconds, Laneri no longer had her previous leisurely appearance. Only fear filled her heart, causing her face to become incomparably pale. This is impossible. It's impossible. How can a human eliminate three fallen angels in one move? You still have that disdainful sense of racial superiority? Noah, who didn't move from the beginning to the end, only raised his eyes and looked at the trembling Laneri in front of him. His gaze was so calm that it made one's scalp numb. That's why you can take advantage of a girl who clearly did nothing wrong without any sense of guilt, right? Noah couldn't help but recall the reason why Isha came to him. Because I don't know where I can go. Yes. She didn't know where she could go. But in the end, Isha chose to come to Noah and even begged Noah to take her in. Isha didn't even know a little about Noah. Before today, she didn't even speak a word to Noah. Her impression of Noah was only that Noah could easily defeat Freddy and mercilessly kill him. She didn't know anything about such a person and her first impression of him was very cruel, yet she chose to rely on him. One could imagine how helpless she must have felt at that time. After all, if she made the wrong choice, she would be doomed eternally. Fortunately, Isha met Noah. If Isha had met an unsympathetic person who coveted Isha's beauty and took her in, what would have happened to her? She didn't even need to think about it. In the end, Isha still chose to come to Noah. It wasn't that Isha was naive enough to believe that there was no bad person in the world, but she really had no other choice. The one who forced Isha to this point, other than the church, was the fallen angel who coveted the sacred gear in Isha's body. Just because someone's body carried a completely unwanted but useful power, she completely squeezed out the value of this person, even at the cost of her life? In the world of Black Bullet, what was the difference between those trashy humans who kept saying that the cursed child was the hope of humanity and asked them to give up their lives to fight for it? Yet they openly accused the other party of being a monster? So you have succeeded in pissing me off. With a bone-chilling ruthlessness, Noah reached out his hand to Laneri, who was floating in the air in front of him. I heard that the fallen angels used to be angels that served God. Because they had evil thoughts that they shouldn't have, they fell and became fallen angels. Then if I can let you return to the embrace of the Lord you used to serve after killing you, you should be grateful to me, right? As he spoke, a dazzling magic array appeared in front of Noah's palm. The mana radiating from the array illuminated Noah's cold eyes. But I still want to say, you don't have to thank me, just don't let me see you again. Hearing those words and feeling the terrifying mana rising from Noah's body, the fear in Laneri's heart finally erupted. Ah! While screaming hysterically, Laneri ran in the opposite direction from where Noah was and ran for her life. Looking at Laneri, who was running away at the fastest speed in her life, the beautiful magic formation in front of Noah's palm suddenly spun. Bang! In the next moment, along with the dull sound of a gunshot, a magical light beam carrying a scorching heat tore through the air and blasted towards Lanali. In just a few moments, it caught up with Lanali and engulfed her figure. Boom! Under the pitch-black moonlight, a gorgeous beam of magic power exploded in the air, stirring up strong winds and bright flames, illuminating the horizon. As for fallen angel Laneri, she had already set up her subordinates' footsteps and silently vanished into thin air. Vanishing into thin air. Noah's pitch-black eyes reflected the colors of the flames in the air. He slowly withdrew his mana while looking at his hand and smiled helplessly. After becoming a god slayer, the already foul mana has become even more out of the norm. After processing the mana, The magic that is shot out can no longer be used as a bullet, but as a cannon? If Qingzi knew, he would probably feel that it's unfair, right? Chapter 596. Greetings, everyone. I'm Aisha Aljet. Nice to meet you. Inside the Supernatural Research Department of the Full King Academy, Aisha stood at the entrance and bowed to everyone present. Apart from Xiao Mao, all the demons in the Supernatural Research Department looked at each other and stood up. Noah, who was leaning against the wall, could only smile bitterly as he witnessed the scene. Just like Kitten last night, both Ryaz and Jurai Himashima seemed very confused by Aisha's appearance. They were even a little speechless. There was nothing they could do about it. After all, Aisha had been wearing that nun's habit all this time and refused to change. At first, Noah had planned to have Kitten accompany Aisha to buy some casual clothes before coming here to meet Ryaz. That way, it would not cause unnecessary trouble. However, Aisha said that she would be nervous if she did not dress up properly when meeting someone important. As it turned out, the so-called solemnity was referring to the nun's habit, which led to this scene. On the other hand, Aisha herself did not seem to know what she did wrong. She did not get the response she expected, and was at a loss as to what to do. She kept looking at Noah for help, and Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. However, before Noah could say anything, Ryaz spoke. Teacher Noah. Crossing her arms and leaning against the luxurious desk, Ryaz asked with her eyes closed. Can you please explain the current situation? I've already explained it once last night. So let's just wait for Kitten to report it to you so that I don't have to say it again. Noah sighed. Of course, I can still tell you the purpose of this meeting. Purpose? Ryaz and Jurai Himashima looked at each other before asking. So you're saying that you brought this nun here because you need my help? Well, that's it. Noah did not beat around the bush. After glancing in Aisha's direction, he said to Leah, actually, I want to ask you to help Aisha with the enrollment procedures so that she can study at Full King Academy. Huh? Leah exclaimed in shock as she looked at Noah in disbelief. You mean you want the church's nuns to come and go freely in my territory? Not to mention Leah's, apart from Kitten who knew what was going on, Jurai Himashima was also completely confused, but she still spoke very politely. Teacher Noah, are you serious? It was no wonder that Junaiji would ask this question. After all, it was hard to imagine that a member of the church would be able to freely enter and leave the demon's territory and study in the Full King Academy. After all, demons and the church were mortal enemies. Aisha's identity isn't a problem. Kitten will explain it to you later. Noah felt that it was too troublesome to explain, so he went straight to the point. I just want to say that Aisha is the same as me. She doesn't belong to any faction, so you don't have to worry about that. Just tell me if I can let Aisha study in Full King Academy regardless of her identity. That being said, as long as Leah agreed, it would not be a problem for Aisha to enter Full King Academy. On the surface, Full King Academy was an extremely ordinary high school, but it was actually a unit run by the Gimli family in the human realm. In other words, Leah was the owner of Full King Academy. As long as Leah agreed, Aisha's enrollment would not be a problem. I want to ask you for a favor as well. Aisha nervously tapped her fingers and spoke timidly. If Mr. Noah and Kitten are here, then I'd like to be here as well. So please. With that, Aisha bowed deeply again, and Leah's frown deepened. It seems that a lot of things have happened in places I don't know about. With that, Leah thought about it for a moment before nodding. All right. If we don't consider her identity, it's not a problem for her to enroll in the academy. An elated look appeared on Aisha's face upon hearing this. Oh really? But just like my mentor, I'll take corresponding measures to enroll you in Full King Academy. Leah looked straight at Aisha, her expression turning more or less serious. Not only will I have someone investigate your identity, but I'll also have Kitten keep an eye on you just like Mr. Noah. Are you sure you're okay with that? Yes. Aisha seemed to have calmed down from Leah's seriousness, and a sincere smile appeared on her adorable little face. As long as I can be with Mr. Noah and Kitten, I'm willing to do anything. From this sentence, anyone could tell that Aisha was dependent on Noah and Kitten. Presumably, in this unfamiliar place where her identity was very sensitive, Aisha would only feel at ease if she stayed by Noah and Kitten's side, right? It's good that you understand. She nodded and said helplessly, I'm glad that you understand. I don't know what happened, but since I've agreed to it, I hope everything goes smoothly. Don't let anything happen that would make me regret it. Yes. Aisha straightened her back and replied reflexively. Clearly, Aisha was nervous in front of the noble and elegant Leah, who was also a pure-blooded superior demon. Thanks, Leah's. Noah thanked Leah's before turning to the kitten. Kitten, show Aisha around the academy, and let her familiarize herself with the place. Kitten did not object, and held Aisha's hand after a nod. Come with me. Oh, okay. With that, the expressionless kitten left the supernatural research department with the happy Aisha and walked outside. Only then did Leah turn her gaze back to Noah. Could it be that what happened last night has something to do with that child? What happened last night? Noah was startled and immediately reacted. You already know? What can I know? Leah said with some displeasure. I just felt a very powerful magic power appear last night, and the location was where you lived. If it wasn't for Kitten not contacting me, I would have gone to the scene last night to check it out. Last night, Noah's 2 magic cannons directly wiped out 4 of the fallen angel's low-level personnel. Although it was just a simple magic trick that was fired after processing magic power, Noah's magic power was out of the norm. The simplest magic trick, whose power was directly linked to the amount of magic power, was much more powerful than other magic tricks. Even Noah could no longer call it a magic bullet, but a magic cannon. That being the case, how could Leah not have noticed the huge commotion last night? He didn't go over to check it out directly. Presumably it was because that place was where Noah lived and the kitten was also there. Well, a lot of things did happen on my side. Noah very irresponsibly threw the job of explaining away. Kitten will report it to you anyway, so I won't say much. You can just ask her. Don't you think that's a little too clean? Leah smiled bitterly. Kanna must have sensed the commotion last night, but she didn't move because she sensed that I didn't go there. But soon she should come directly to me to ask about what happened, right? As soon as he said that, someone knocked on the door of the Supernatural Research Department. Yes, Jurai Himashima was the first to react. Come in. The door of the Supernatural Research Department was immediately pushed open by a hand. It was the hand of the vice-head of the Student Council, Jinro Zhangji. And standing in the direction of the door was naturally the president of the Student Council, Takashi Kanna. Just like Leah and Jurai Himashima, Takashi Kanna and Jinro Zhangji had always been working together. Noah, who used to think that it was like a princess and her attendant, now understood why. Leah once said that there were only 2 pure-blooded demons in this academy. One was Leah, who was from the Gimli family. As for the other one, there was no doubt that it was Leith's childhood sweetheart Joshua Kangna. And pure-blooded demons were all nobles, superior demons who had received noble titles. Therefore, Jinro Zhangji must be Takashi Kanna's kin. Chapter 597. Seeing Kangna and Jinlua Zhangji enter the room, Leah's could not help but show a perfect smile. I was just talking about you, and you're here already. You're still as serious about things that can't be taken lightly. Since I have already said that this is a serious matter, it would be foolish to not take it seriously. Kangna-ji smiled slightly. After he turned his gaze to Noah, the smile on his face became even wider. It's been a while, teacher. This is the first time we've met as demons, isn't it? It's just that the famous president of the student council is too busy to pay attention to an idler like me who can only stay in the infirmary. Noah shrugged. But Kangna, shouldn't you introduce yourself to me again? You're right. Otherwise, it would be rude to you, teacher. Chokchang Na folded his hands in front of him and slowly bowed to Noah. After bowing, he straightened his body and looked at Noah. My real name is Kangna Sidi, the next leader of the Sidi family, a pure-blooded demon family in the underworld. You can call me Kangna as well, teacher. So you're a descendant of a noble as well. Noah smiled helplessly. Well, I'm not as famous as you and Lias, and my name is real. As for the rest, you should know everything from Lias, right? I can only say that I know everything that Lias knows, and naturally, I don't know anything that Lias doesn't know. Kangna closed his eyes and said with a deeper meaning. I'm also waiting for the time when teacher is willing to tell us his true identity. Noah pursed his lips when he heard that, but he did not say anything else. There was no need to think about it. Both Lias and Kangna were still doubtful about Noah's origins. It was not that Lias and Kangna suspected that Noah had sneaked into the academy with ulterior motives. They just thought that Noah's identity was definitely not as simple as he said. The most direct question was, since Noah was a magician and sorcerer, where did he learn his magic tricks and spells? If he could learn something similar to a demon's power, he could not be just a normal human. Of course, Noah could also come up with a popular story in a certain country. For example, he was walking on the streets when a beggar suddenly took out a book and sold it to Noah for $10 each. In the end, after Noah bought it, he found that it recorded magic. However, using that story, Noah might as well say that he was unlucky enough to fall off a cliff somewhere, survived, and picked up a book that recorded magic, peerless martial arts. That was how he became a mage, peerless martial arts. That way he might be able to gain more trust. From Lias and Kangna's point of view, there would be no books that recorded magic, no matter where the beggars were or where the cliffs were. Speaking of which, this is really strange. Kangna looked around the supernatural research department and asked in confusion. Only Lias and Junai are left in the department? What about Kitten and Dumba? They all have their own missions now, Lias replied helplessly. I also realized that it's only me and Junai in the department recently. We're starting to run out of manpower. Then, how about taking in a few more dependents? Kangna suddenly smiled. You should have a lot of chess pieces on your side, right? A lot. Lias shrugged. But I, Lias Jimenez, won't simply hand over my chess pieces just because I want more manpower. If there's no suitable candidate, I won't simply perform demon reincarnation. Kangna nodded as if she agreed with Lias' point of view. Noah, who heard the conversation between Lias and Kangna, remembered about demon reincarnation. As mentioned before, after the Great War between the three factions of demons, angels and fallen angels, each faction had to rely on humans to survive due to excessive losses. Among them, after the war, many of the pureblood 72 pillar families were directly cut off and destroyed in history, greatly reducing the number of pureblood demons. In order to increase the combat power of demons and increase their population, Beelzebub, one of the current 4 demon kings, developed a technique to use chess pieces to reincarnate demons from other races. The technique was called Evil Piece. It was a technique that used chess in the human world as a model to create chess pieces and provide them to superior demons so that the superior demons could use them on creatures from other races, thereby allowing them to reincarnate as demons and become their own dependents and servants. There were a total of 6 types of chess pieces: king, queen, castle, rook, knight, bishop, pawn. Among them, there was only 1 king and 1 queen, 2 rook, 2 knight and 2 bishop, and 8 pawn, which was the most basic pawn. Moreover, each chess piece had the characteristics and different values to bestow certain abilities to the reincarnated dependents. The king was a superior demon who had obtained the evil piece. It had the ability to reincarnate other creatures into dependents, and its combat ability depended on the individual. The queen had the abilities of all chess pieces except for the king and pawn. Its value was equivalent to 9 pawns. The rook would be endowed with super high attack and defense, and its value was equivalent to 5 pawns. The knight would be endowed with excellent speed, and its value was equivalent to 3 pawns. The bishop would be endowed with magic talent and ability, and its value was equivalent to 3 pawns. Pawn, on the other hand, had the ability to be promoted to any pawn other than king in the enemy's camp when he received the permission of the king. He could obtain the ability of that pawn and change it at will, including queen. Of course, as pure-blooded superior demons, Liath and Kangna were both kings. Needless to say, Jurai Himejima and Juhaim Shinra, who served Lias and Kangna all day long, were the most valuable and powerful queen. As for the other chess pieces, Noah did not know about Kangna's side. But as for Liath's side, Noah remembered that the kitten was a rook, and Shiba Yuto was a knight. That was why the kitten had such monstrous strength, and Shiba Yuto's speed was also outstanding. No matter what, as a pure-blooded demon family, if you don't have powerful dependents that can match your status, it will affect your reputation, won't it? Kangna glanced at Liath. Especially since you are a special case. Even if you only represent a pure-blooded demon family now, You will soon have the reputation of a pure-blooded demon family added to your name. That has nothing to do with you. The smile on Liath's face, which had been extremely noble and elegant all this while, seemed to have frozen. It disappeared in an instant, and her tone became gloomy. You're here to ask about what happened last night, right? Song wasn't surprised at all by Leah's sudden change in attitude. He nodded and walked up to Leah's, who had a rather sour expression on her face, and started talking to her. Noah, who had clearly seen Liath's reaction, looked at Kajima Junai, who also had a complicated expression on her face. He hesitated for a moment before asking tentatively, "What does that mean?" Jidao Junai shook his head, forcing a smile as he said this. Sometimes being born into a noble family is not necessarily a good thing. Upon hearing that, Noah shut his mouth and did not ask any more questions. It seemed that Liath had a story too. Chapter 598. Aisha seemed to be very happy about being admitted to Full King Academy. Apart from the one time she showed up at the infirmary under Kitten's lead, she spent the rest of her time with Kitten, wandering around every corner of the academy. Noah even heard that under Kitten's invitation, Aisha even joined the first-year girls' physical education class and sat in on the first-year class. Noah didn't know how Kitten convinced the teacher to allow Aisha to attend physical education class and sit in on the class. Noah only knew that under such circumstances, Aisha and Kitten were together all day long. They didn't even wait for Noah after school and went straight home together. Seeing how close Aisha and Kitten were, Noah really couldn't imagine the terrible atmosphere when they met last night. But what was even more unimaginable was that a nun from the church would hang out with a demon, right? Seeing how happy Aisha was, Noah had no choice but to let Kitten take the little nun and run around. On the other hand, there were some problems on Leah and Kanna's side. It was mainly reflected in two aspects. One was Kanna's attitude towards Noah. No, it should be said that Kanna cared about Noah a lot. Maybe it was because Kitten told her the reason why Noah killed the 4 fallen angels who had set their sights on Aisha. Kanna started to pay attention to Noah. To be more precise, it was Tsong Na who noticed Noah's battle prowess. To be able to kill 4 fallen angels without suffering a single injury, and to be able to sense a huge amount of mana last night, Kanna believed that Noah's strength was at least at the level of a superior demon. In other words, Noah's strength should at least be on par with Leah and Kanna's. If that was the case, Kanna would definitely pay more attention to Noah. A mage who was at least as powerful as a superior demon was enough to threaten Lias and Kanna. While Leah had begun to trust Noah, Kanna didn't. However, Noah didn't show any signs of attacking anyone in Full King Academy, nor did he show any intention of doing anything. That was why Kanna suppressed her suspicions for the time being, and only paid attention to Noah. People with great power attracted attention easily in the first place. That was why Kanna's change was understandable. On the other hand, there was the problem with Leah. There was no telling what Kanna's words in the Supernatural Research Department meant, but Kanna's words did awaken some unpleasant memories in Leah's heart. Those memories seemed to be hidden deep in her heart as if she was avoiding them. And yet, Lias's childhood sweetheart, Song Na, dug it out instead. Perhaps it was because Kanna was reminding Leah to stop running? But that did put Leah's mood today. According to Jurai Himashima, Leah had been spacing out many times throughout the day and appeared to be very absent-minded. Noah kept that in mind and didn't poke his nose into other people's business. Chapter 497. Alim. After a while, Noah told Erica and Liliana about how he met Athena last night, followed her here, discovered those evil magicians and came to this ruin. After understanding the whole story, Erica and Liliana fell silent almost at the same time. They looked at the evil magicians lying on the ground with hostility in their eyes. What a loss of composure! Liliana expressed her inner emotions directly. Although the losses caused by the battle between the two kings made the magic societies in Italy focus most of their attention on the crater, which is why they didn't discover the petty tricks of these despicable people, none of the magic societies discovered the situation here. It's really a loss of composure on the part of the magic societies in Italy. There's nothing we can do about it, Lily, Erica analyzed calmly. After all, Italy is basically controlled by various magic societies in secret now. Even if there were any ruins, they would have basically discovered them. Who would have thought that there would be undiscovered ruins hidden in this place? Or maybe someone discovered it but didn't explore it, right? Noah made sarcastic remarks as if it had nothing to do with him. Although they are all magic societies in Italy, there is also a hostile relationship between the Copper Black Cross and the Bronze Black Cross. It's impossible for all the magic societies in this country to be united. This ruin might have been discovered by some magic society, but in order not to attract the attention of other magic societies, they haven't found the opportunity to explore it. Noah glanced in the direction of the ruins. To put it simply, it's possible that some magic society has been hiding this ruin, because they want to monopolize it and wait for the opportunity to explore it. In the end, it was discovered by these evil magic societies during this sensitive period. Right. Erica sighed. It's not impossible. Upon hearing that, Liliana furrowed her brows subtly, revealing a trace of helplessness and irritation on her face. Liliana's personality was too straightforward, which could be said to be the most standard type of knight. Therefore, Liliana generally wouldn't get involved in complicated matters such as conspiracy theories. It could be said that in terms of talent in swordsmanship and magic, Liliana wasn't inferior to Erica at all. However, Liliana didn't have the temperament and qualities of a social lady at all. That was why Liliana had been toyed with by Erica since she was a child. Liliana could also understand the various speculations of Noah and Erica, but it was difficult for her to participate in the discussion. The only thing Liliana could do was to express her feelings without hiding anything. Hence, Liliana said as if she was having a headache. I didn't expect that even a goddess like Athena would appear and look for the snake. Noah couldn't help but smile bitterly. After rolling his eyes at the shy Isha who popped her head out of the bed and Kitten who was staring at him, he picked up 2 pieces of clothes on the ground and threw them on the bed. I put the ingredients I just bought from the supermarket into the refrigerator. Before I finish, if you are still hiding in the bed, I will directly lift the quilt. Huh? Isha was startled and tears welled up in her eyes. Why are you like this? Kitten stared at Noah even more fiercely. Obscene healthcare teacher. Noah, who was completely accustomed to Kitten's sharp tongue, turned around indifferently and walked toward the kitchen. I mean what I say. Looking at Noah who left this sentence and walked into the kitchen without looking back, Isha and Kitten looked at each other. After a moment of silence, they suddenly lifted the quilt at the same time and picked up the clothes that were thrown on the bed by Noah. When they saw the clothes, they both widened their eyes at the same time. This is. Sure enough, you are an animal teacher. Isha and Kitten had no choice but to put on the clothes when they heard the sound of the refrigerator door being closed. Even though their faces were red, they still put on the clothes. So Noah, who came out of the kitchen, froze again as if he had been petrified. This was because Isha and Kitten's outfits were too destructive for men. It wasn't anything strange, though. However, at this time, Isha was only wearing pajamas that had been buttoned incorrectly due to panic. Moreover, she was only wearing the upper half of her body. Kitten was even worse, she was only wearing a white t-shirt. In other words, whether it was Isha or Kitten, they only covered their upper bodies, exposing their 2 white thighs to the air. Noah could even vaguely see that under the pajamas and t-shirts on Isha and Kitten, there were faintly discernible patterns on their lower bodies. This caused Noah to involuntarily take a step back and exclaim in shock. Why are you dressed like this? Isha and Kitten, who were angry out of embarrassment, stared at Noah speechlessly. Noah suddenly remembered. He only threw 1 set of clothes to Isha and Kitten each. Noah covered his face. This kind of situation is inevitable when living together. Chapter 599. Cohabitation between a boy and a girl would cause all kinds of problems. If they loved each other and were already married, or if they were boyfriend and girlfriend and were so close that they couldn't be separated, then it was a different story. However, if the relationship between them could only stop at the level of friends, then all kinds of things would happen and it was inevitable. Take Noah for example, he had lived with a lot of girls before. For example, in the world of Absolute Double Blade, he first lived under the same roof with Ivanli and Julie, and then he lived in the same room with Lilith. At that time, all kinds of accidents had caused Noah a lot of trouble. However, among the 3 girls, except for Ivanli, Lilith, who was as dazzling as the sun, and Julie, who was as gentle as the moon, didn't have the self-awareness of a man and a woman. Maybe they trusted Noah too much, or they didn't put up their guard against Noah at all. During the cohabitation period, they had been training Noah's patience. It made Noah feel that the reason he could face girls so calmly now was all thanks to the two girls. On the contrary, in the world of Night of the Sorcerer, when he lived with Qingzi and Yuzhu, there weren't so many things that made people think of romantic things. First of all, the area of Jiyuan Temple was too big. Even if they lived in the same mansion, if they wanted to meet, it was similar to visiting the neighbor's house. Naturally, there wouldn't be so many things happening. Second, Jiyuan Temple was originally Yuzhu's territory. In the end, there were magic spells set by Yuzhu. This kind of application was effective in defending against external enemies, so it was quite easy to prevent any accidents. So, at this moment, Noah finally faced the various problems of cohabitation between a man and a woman that he hadn't faced in a long time. Especially Isha, she seemed to have an excessive attitude of gratitude towards Noah for taking her in. Coupled with her pure and kind nature, sometimes with just a few words, she could make Noah speechless. For example, this night. Is this really okay? After the lights were turned off, Isha, who had put on her pajamas, laid on the bed and looked at Noah, who was sleeping on the ground. Her voice more or less carried a trace of guilt and uneasiness. You gave the bed to a person like me, but you slept on the ground. I'm really sorry. Next to Isha, Kitten also put on her pajamas and laid on the bed. After hearing Isha's words, although she didn't say anything, she still stuck her head out of the bed and stared at Noah with a pair of beautiful eyes that could be seen clearly even in the night. Seeing this scene, even without asking, Noah knew that Kitten must have the same thoughts as Isha. Moreover, it wasn't just a day or two of them. After all, Kitten was very bad at expressing her emotions, just like Noah's other cohabitant, Julie, or even worse. At least Julie could stick to Noah's side without hesitation when she wanted to express her goodwill. Kitten, on the other hand, seemed to be completely exhausted in this regard. Even if there was something, she would choose not to say it out loud. Instead, she would hide it in her heart and silently let it pass. So, even if she had the same thoughts as Isha, Kitten probably wouldn't say it out loud, right? You don't have to worry so much. After all, I'm also a man. I can't let a girl sleep on the ground, right? Noah, who already had some understanding of Kitten, smiled knowingly, lying on the bed that covered the ground, and shook his head. Besides, don't look at me like this. I've tried to sleep in the worst environment in the past. Even in the mountains and forests when it was raining heavily, I just found a tree and leaned against it to sleep. Now that I have such a place to sleep, it's already very good. That's too pitiful. Isha's compassion seemed to be awakened. She couldn't help but clasped her hands in front of her chest and prayed. Lord, please bless the kind and pitiful Mr. Noah. Oh! When Isha prayed, Kitten's brows immediately frowned. I feel so uncomfortable. Ah! Isha only then reacted and smiled embarrassedly. I forgot that Kitten is a demon. Hearing this, Noah couldn't help but laugh. For demons, the god in the Bible was the absolute enemy. Therefore, Isha praying in front of Kitten like this, of course Kitten would feel uncomfortable. Fortunately, Aisha was asking the so-called Lord to bless Noah. If she was asking the Lord to bless Kitten, Kitten might have been hurt a little, right? Besides, even if she prayed for Noah instead of Kitten, Noah probably wouldn't receive the so-called God's blessing, right? God was like humans to locusts. They felt that demons were harmful and must be eradicated. And God to the Godslayer was like humans to a tiger. It was no longer a level of harmlessness, but a level of non-life-threatening danger. This was the real threat. Under such circumstances, if the so-called God knew of Noah's existence, not only would he not bless Noah, but he would also curse Noah. Okay, you guys can sleep peacefully. Immediately, Noah said with a chuckle. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. You guys don't have to worry about me. Is that so? Isha was startled. Then she thought of something and became a little shy. How about Mr. Noah also sleep with us? Noah, who had a knowing smile on his face after hearing this sentence, the expression on his face completely froze and he fell into a state of speechlessness. This way everyone will be able to sleep comfortably, right? Isha seemed to have realized how ambiguous her words were. Her pretty face turned red and she hurriedly explained in a panic. Kita-chan also thinks that this is better, right? However, the small cat made such a sound. Rejected. Ah! Aisha immediately lowered her head in dejection. Seeing this, Noah laughed bitterly. Okay, go to sleep, you still have school tomorrow, really? Isha and Kitten both nodded in unison. At this moment, a small red magic circle suddenly appeared beside the kitten's ear like a headset covering one of its ears. Kitten was stunned at first, then she reacted, straightened up, and began to speak to the magic circle. Is this Senior Junai? Surprisingly, it was a small convenient magic circle used for communication. Kitten began to whisper to the magic circle beside her ear. After a while, she wiped her ear and cancelled the appearance of the magic circle. At the same time, Kitten's face also showed a serious expression, looked at Noah, and said this sentence in front of Noah and Isha. The minister is gone. In the silent night, outside the gate of the empty Komoy Academy, Noah slowly walked from afar. When he arrived in front of the school gate, he leaped and easily jumped over the fence of the school gate, entered the academy, and walked in the direction of the old school building. Lyeth was gone. This was the news that Junai brought to Kitten. However, this news was a bit unclear. To be more precise, it should be said that Lyeth had never returned home. Junai, who discovered this, contacted Kitten and seemed to want to ask if Kitten had seen Lyeth. But of course Kitten, who had been fooling around with Isha all day was not with Lyeth. While Junai thought that Lyeth should be fine, Kitten seemed to be very worried. To ease Kitten's mind, Noah came to Komoy Academy to see if he could find Lyeth. Noah's intuition told him that Lyeth should still be in the academy. Noah walked into the old schoolhouse and arrived at the Supernatural Research Department. He gently opened the unlocked door of the Supernatural Research Department and cast his gaze inside. Noah noticed it at first glance. Beside the window of the Supernatural Research Department, a beautiful figure with red hair fluttering in the wind stood there, leaning sideways against the window, looking at the night sky outside. Her pretty face under the soft moonlight showed a pitiful and helpless feeling. As expected, Lyeth was still in the academy. And it was very obvious that Lyeth was still here, not because she had something to do, but because she had a lot of things on her mind. Noah had already vaguely noticed this possibility. That was why Noah felt that Lyeth did not go home. She was not running around outside, but was still in the old school building and had not returned. Chapter 600. To be honest, this was the first time Noah had seen Leah's pitiful and helpless look. In the past, Leah gave Noah the impression that she was a person who had received an advanced education. Her every move carried a kind of majesty and elegance, and no one could find fault with it. After all, in the evil piece, Leah was the king. And Leah's every action did not disappoint her position as the king at all. She was smart and capable, and sometimes even made people feel that she was the next leader of a pure-blooded noble among the demons. She was impeccable. But at that very moment, the Lyeth in front of Noah was no longer a smart and capable young lady of a noble family. Instead, she was just an ordinary girl who had fallen into a heavy heart. It was hard to believe that such a strong person had become so weak. It was because of this disbelief that no man could stand by and watch Leah in front of him, right? At least that was the case for Noah. At once, Noah closed the door of the Paranormal Research Department and approached Lyeth, who was looking out of the window, and spoke softly. Leah. Although his voice was soft, in the silent and dark Supernatural Research Department, Noah's call was still quite harsh. However, Leah did not seem to notice Noah's voice at all. She did not even notice Noah's approach. She just looked out of the window in a daze. Her eyes were even a little unfocused, and she had completely fallen into a state of absent-mindedness. If Noah really had any bad intentions toward Leah, he could definitely kill her with a single blow right now, right? Is Lyeth really troubled to this extent by her worries? Noah frowned slightly, reached out, and put his hand on Leah's shoulder. Leah, it's time to wake up. Ah. Leah immediately let out a cute cry of surprise after being woken up without warning. She quickly came back to her senses and quickly looked behind her. When she saw Noah, she was slightly stunned and surprised. Why are you here? Shouldn't I be the one asking you that question? Noah's frown deepened. It's already so late. Why are you still here? Late. Leah looked out of the window in confusion, and when she saw that the sky outside was completely dark, her expression became even more surprised. It's already so late? Didn't you notice the time? Noah was a little surprised. What are you so lost in thought about? And nothing. It was only then that Leah realized what was going on. After adjusting her emotions, she showed Noah her usual noble, elegant, and heroic smile. "You're here for me, teacher? Thank you very much." Seeing that Leah had returned to her usual self, Noah did not feel relieved. Instead, he sighed. "The way you look now only tells me that you're trying to be brave." "What?" The smile on Leah's face changed slightly. She turned her back to Noah, as if she did not want Noah to see her expression. "I'm not trying to be brave. It's just that you're too worried, teacher." "I'm fine. I'm just worried." Noah shook his head and went to the other side of the window. He leaned against it and stood on the left and right side of the Supernatural Research Department's window. Then he turned and looked at the night view outside. "But those cute family members of yours are not just worried. They're very worried." Leah fell silent all of a sudden. Clearly, she knew that if she continued to hide it, she would really be trying to be brave. The surroundings suddenly became quiet, and the atmosphere in the Supernatural Research Department became a little strange. Not long after, Leah suddenly spoke. "Do you think it's good to be born into nobility, teacher?" Leah's words reminded Noah of what Jurai Himajima said in the morning. So, Noah replied to Leah's question with what Junai Himashima had said to Leah's. Sometimes being born into nobility isn't necessarily a good thing. "You're right." Leah's expression became a little bitter, but it quickly turned into a somewhat illusory, gloomy face as if she was going to go far away. "However, I don't think it's a bad thing that I was born into the Gemengli family. In fact, I'm very grateful that fate allowed me to be born into the Gemengli family, allowing me to have a loving family and endless glory." "Is that so?" Noah glanced at Leah as if he wanted to see through her heart. "Do you really think so?" "Yes." Leah nodded heavily and looked out of the window. "But if it's possible, I hope that people will remember that I'm still Leah, while bearing the name of Gimli." The meaning behind her words was obvious. Noah didn't know how famous the Gimli family was or how high their status was. But being born into such a family, Leah's brilliance would inevitably be overshadowed. When people saw Leah, they would only say, "That's the next head of the Gimli family," and not "That's Leah." Just like how Noah and Laxus were looked at through colored glasses because they were Makarov's grandsons, Leah must have had the same experience. When she did something outstanding that ordinary people couldn't achieve, people would think that since she was born into such a special family, it was natural for her to have such achievements. If she didn't have any outstanding achievements, people would look at her with contempt, thinking that it was a stain on her noble birth and that she didn't deserve to have such a status. Laxus became neurotic because of this. Leah wasn't as extreme as Laxus, but she still felt pressured. "I'm proud to be a member of the Gimli family." Leah smiled bitterly at Noah with a puzzled expression. "So I don't want the name Gimli to burden me. Do you understand, teacher? Since you're born into a noble family, sometimes there are many things that are beyond your control," Noah said faintly after a moment of silence. "The most common example is being unable to decide who you're going to marry. Right?" This sentence made Leah lower her head and bury her pretty face under her red bangs, covering all her expression. In response, Noah just smiled abruptly. "Actually, I'm also engaged and I have 2 fiancés." Leah's ears twitched slightly as if she was reacting to Noah's words. "They've liked me since they were young, but I've never responded to this. It wasn't until recently that we finally got married and made a promise to each other for a lifetime. At that time, I really thought that the marriage was quite beautiful, and I wanted to make this marriage a beautiful one." As if he didn't see Leah's expression, Noah began to speak, minding his own business. "A lifetime of mutual consent isn't just something that girls can dream of. It's also an extravagant hope in the heart of anyone who has a longing for love. And to be able to promise a lifetime with the person whose heart is closest to yours, that marriage is undoubtedly a happy one. Everyone wants it." With that said, Noah sighed. However, an unconsensual marriage isn't burdened with the vision of the future, but with the heavy burden of reality. No matter what the purpose is, it will only be a kind of hurt. Just take it as a teacher's advice for your life. Noah smiled at Leah. "Don't be blinded by the surname Gimli. You just have to be Leah. And if you let go of the disadvantages of the surname, you must also let go of the benefits of the surname. What the family gives you is often something that you can only accept unilaterally. So, if you want something, you have to fight for it yourself." Leah almost couldn't help but say this. But, isn't my strength limited? Then, can't you not fight alone? Noah replied matter-of-factly. Aren't there many people around you who can lend you strength? Leah fell into deep thought. Noah didn't disturb Leah. He just smiled and looked at the night view outside the window. The night passed just like that. Chapter 601. That night, only the two of them knew the content of the conversation between Noah and Leah. Noah did not reveal it to Isha and the kitten, and Leah did not seem to have told Jurai Himashima either. However, since then, Leah had returned to her previous valiant and heroic performance. Although she would think seriously from time to time, her state was no longer as bad as before the conversation. If there was anything that had changed, it would be that Leah would often consult Noah about life, as if she hoped that Noah could give her some advice on what to do next. In this regard, Noah naturally would not refuse. Sometimes he would chat with Leah to relieve Leah's worries. After about 3 days of this life, Leah seemed to have made a major decision in her heart. She no longer came to Noah to consult about life. Instead, she would often quietly contact someone in the dark. According to Jurai Himashima, Leah did not even tell her about this matter. This was a very rare thing. One must know that for a superior demon king, the queen was not only the most capable assistant by his side, but also the confidant who could solve problems the most. If Leah did not tell Jurai Himashima what she was doing, it proved that it was definitely not an ordinary matter. And according to Jurai Himashima, although she did not know who Leah often contacted, she could sometimes see her very excited about something on the other side of the small magic circle used for communication. So if this continued, Jurai Himashima would sooner or later know what Leah was doing. On the contrary, Noah vaguely guessed what Leah was planning to do. However, Noah would not object to this matter. Rather, he would support it and let Leah do whatever she wanted. And so 3 days passed just like that. This morning, Noah brought the kitten along as usual, walking on the crowded Academy Avenue in the direction of the school building. Humph, humph, humph. On the other side of Noah, Isha, who was wearing the Colt King Academy's uniform, was also walking with a school bag in her hand. She was so happy that she was humming a song. Seeing this, the kitten could not help but speak softly. From today onwards, Aisha will be my senior. Yes. Isha's admission procedures were finally completed yesterday. Today, she was finally a second-year student in Colt King Academy as a student. Originally, with Leah's power, this matter should have been completed much faster. But Leah herself had more important things to do, so it was delayed until today. Even so, Aisha looked very happy. From today onwards, I'm also a student of this academy. Isha smiled shyly at Noah. Should I also call Mr. Noah a teacher? Compared to Mr. Noah's polite way of calling me a teacher, I think it's much more intimate. Noah patted Isha's head. Although I'm not in charge of teaching, Isha can still come to me in the infirmary if she needs anything. Senior Isha doesn't need to go to a teacher, the kitten said without looking back. Senior Isha's sacred gear can heal all kinds of injuries. There's no need for a teacher. I'm not talking about coming to me if you're hurt. I'm talking about coming to me in the infirmary if you need anything. Noah rolled his eyes. Kitty-chan, can you stop going against me all the time? The kitten continued walking without a word. Perhaps she did not care about Noah's words, or she just did not want to talk to him. She was as quiet as always. The three of them walked side by side. Naturally, it was the same as before, and they attracted numerous gazes and discussions from the surroundings. But today, most of the surrounding students had their eyes on Isha, and some of them were shocked by her beauty. Isha was also a very beautiful girl. Presumably, in the near future, Isha would become a very popular person in Full King Academy, and her story would be spread by the hungry boys in the academy. Noah was slowly getting used to this situation. The kitten was already used to this situation, and she continued to walk on the main road of the academy as if no one was around. As for Isha, she did not seem to notice anything and continued to talk to Noah and the kitten. If one thought about it carefully, it was not strange. Isha was the former saintess of the church, and her name was widely spread and was worshipped by many believers. It was impossible for Isha to not be in a situation where she was the center of attention, or rather, it was not strange that she was the center of attention every day. This way, Isha would not be unaccustomed to other people's gazes. Therefore Noah the kitten and Isha walked into the school building together. At this moment Noah, who was about to enter the school building, suddenly stopped in his tracks. His eyes suddenly lit up, and even the aura around him began to change. Isha and the kitten, who were keenly aware of this, also stopped in their tracks. "That?" Isha asked in a somewhat uncertain tone. "Did you forget to bring something?" The kitten did not speak, but she also stared straight at Noah, her eyes filled with confusion. Under the gazes of the two girls, Noah retracted his foot, turned around, and looked in a certain direction on the campus, uttering such words. "It seems like an incredible person has come to the school." Hearing this, Isha was still confused, but the kitten's eyes narrowed, and she followed Noah's gaze in that direction, and her expression changed. "That's the direction of the old school building." After saying this, the kitten did not even say goodbye, and directly ran in the direction of the old school building, causing Isha to cry out in alarm. "Isha." Noah patted Isha's shoulder, calming her down. "You go to the classroom first." Hearing this, Isha did not even think about it, and directly shook her head. "I want to go with you." Noah, who did not expect Isha to directly reject him, was stunned on the spot. Following this, Isha clenched her hands, and 2 rings suddenly appeared on her fingers, and her face was filled with determination. "Although I don't know what happened, but I can heal all injuries. If there is a battle and someone is injured, then I will definitely be of use." Noah muttered to himself and after a while nodded. "All right, if it's just to protect you, I have no problem, and I'm not good at healing. If there really is a battle, Isha will be very useful. Let's go together." Isha nodded heavily and under Noah's lead, walked in the direction of the old school building. "Oh, Chariot King Academy's old schoolhouse, Supernatural Research Department." Noah, who came to the door of the Supernatural Research Department, did not hesitate at all and directly opened the door. Swoosh! Almost in an instant, everyone in the room cast their eyes in the direction of the door. Among them Liaz, who was sitting on the sofa, had a rather solemn expression. Junai, who stood behind Liaz as usual, had her usual smile on her face, but there was a faint feeling of a fake smile. The kitten, who came to the Supernatural Research Department before Noah and Isha, also stood beside Junai. As Liaz's dependent, she stood behind Liaz, who was sitting on the sofa, with a cold look on her face. In such a room, an unusually heavy and tense atmosphere permeated the surroundings, bringing about an indescribable pressure. Isha seemed to be intimidated by the atmosphere in the room, and she could not help but hide behind Noah, clutching Noah's clothes with an uneasy expression. Noah just gently patted Isha's hand to comfort her, and his eyes were completely attracted by another person in the room. It was a very tall woman with silver hair tied into 2 braids in front of her, standing in the middle of the magic circle engraved on the ground of the Supernatural Research Department, like a servant waiting for orders. She was wearing a maid outfit, and her whole body exuded a cold aura. Noah did indeed feel a rather formidable aura from this person. That aura had already caught Noah's attention, and it was very close to the Godslayer. It was not hard to imagine that this woman dressed as a maid was definitely not as simple as she looked on the surface. Chapter 602. When Noah and Isha appeared at the entrance of the Paranormal Research Department, Riaz gasped in shock. "Teacher? What are you doing here? You said the same thing last time. Can't you say something new?" Noah shrugged and glanced at the maid who had been staring at him with a smile. "I just sensed that a guest is here, so I came to visit." Before Liaz could say anything, the beautiful silver-haired maid turned her eyes to Liaz and spoke with an expressionless face. "Lady Riaz, are you planning to let a human intervene in this matter? I know what I should do. You don't have to ask." Riaz frowned and stared at the silver-haired maid with a sharp gaze. "Or is it that, Gulifia, I can't even make my own decisions on matters of this level?" "No, that's not what I meant." The maid named Gulifia bowed at Riaz. Her attitude was very humble, but her tone was neither servile nor overbearing. "You are the next head of the Gemengli family. Of course, I can't object to your decision." "You don't object." Riaz spoke with a rare hint of mockery. "Then why are you here when I'm objecting to the family's decision?" "Of course, that's not my intention," Gulifia replied calmly. "I'm here on the orders of the Master and the Demon King, Lord Lucifer." It wasn't just Liaz, But also Junai and Kitten's faces darkened at once. Demon King Lucifer? Isha was shocked by the title. Not to mention Aisha. Even Noah was stunned as he looked at Leah. Lucifer, one of the 4 demon kings who ruled the demon realm at the peak of the demon realm. Why would a demon king be involved in this? Perhaps she had sensed Noah's confusion, but Himejima Junai, who was standing behind Laius, explained. Moreover, as soon as he opened his mouth, Jurai Himeshima revealed a fact that shocked Noah and Isha. The current demon king Lucifer is the elder brother of Minister Laius. Brother? Isha was stunned. In other words, Senior Laius's brother is Lord Lucifer, the demon king? Junai and the kitten nodded. Even Laius let out a bitter smile and sighed. If possible, I really don't want to bring up the name of my elder brother everywhere. I can understand your feelings, but even without the identity of Demon King Lucifer's sister, you are still the next head of the house. Eulefia closed her eyes and said. So, please don't do anything that will make things difficult for the Jamanli family. Her expression changed from a heavy one to a rather ugly one. In other words, in the end you still don't intend to listen to my opinion? I'm just reminding you not to forget your identity, Lady Laius. Eulefia suddenly looked at Laius. You are the next head of the Jamanli family, and your every move represents the Jamanli family. If you insist on doing something like that, the Jamanli family will be the one to suffer. How can you face the Jamanli family if that happens? Don't use the Jamanli family to pressure me. I know what I'm doing. Laius's expression was getting worse, but her eyes were unusually firm. Since I'm the next head of the Jamanli family, at least let me decide on things of this level. I'd rather not be the head of the Jamanli family who can't decide anything. Eulefia's gaze sharpened at those words, and she stared at Leah without blinking. Are you serious? Eulefia had actually abandoned the honorifics. If Eulefia was really a maid like she appeared to be on the surface, then her actions were extremely rude. But Laius actually showed a hint of fear in the face of such a Eulefia, but she still looked back at her with a firm gaze. I've made up my mind, Eulefia. I won't compromise. I want to make a decision for myself. If you can't satisfy me, then I won't go back before you agree, and I won't call myself the next head of the Jamanli family. Following the spread of this sentence, the originally very tense and heavy atmosphere of the scene became even more scalp-numbing. Isha had shrunk behind Noah. While she wasn't trembling, she didn't dare to look in Laius and Eulefia's direction anymore. Clearly, she was starting to feel fear. Noah, who had been quietly listening to Laius and Eulefia's conversation, narrowed his eyes and more or less understood what was going on. From Laius's words, it was clear that the Jamanli family was forcing her to do something, and she wasn't willing to do it. But Laius was not willing to carry out this matter at all. Finally, after a conversation with Noah a while ago, she decided to put forward her opinion to the family. And just like that, the conflict between Laius and the Jamanli family attracted Eulefia. Perhaps Eulefia was here to persuade Laius on behalf of the Jamanli family. As for the matter of Laius being forced to compromise, Noah believed that it was most likely because of the engagement, judging from her performance in the previous conversation. In other words, the Jamanli family had made the decision on Laius's marriage on their own. Naturally, the disgusted Leah started to resist. It was as simple as that. This was a game between Laius and the Jamanli family. Therefore, Noah, who was neither a demon nor a relative of either side, naturally couldn't intervene. Otherwise, it would only cause unnecessary disputes, and it might even lead to the issue between humans and demons instead of Laius and the Jamanli family. That was no laughing matter. Therefore, even if he wanted to intervene, he had to find an opportunity. Noah pondered in his heart and began to look for an opportunity to intervene. Who knew that opportunities would always come unknowingly? In the corner of the Supernatural Research Department, the huge magic circle engraved on the ground suddenly lit up, vibrating the air and emitting a blinding light. Within the light, the magic circle engraved with the Jamanli family's coat of arms began to slowly transform into another pattern. Leah's Jurai Himeshima and Kitten were all shocked the moment they saw the pattern. While everyone's attention was attracted by the unfamiliar magic circle that suddenly appeared, a scorching flame suddenly burned along the edge of the magic circle. And in the scorching flame, a figure slowly emerged. Seeing the owner of the figure, Laia's expression became extremely gloomy, and her eyes were filled with hostility. Noah followed Laia's gaze and saw a man in a red suit without a tie. The shirt under the suit was also casually open to his chest. Although his facial features were regular, there was a hint of fierceness in his expression. The man was probably in his early 20s, a few years older than Noah. However, when he turned his head and looked at Laius, the smile on his face was no different from that of an ordinary gangster. There was no sense of maturity at all. "Yo Laius, I'm here to see you." Laia's expression became more and more unpleasant. Even if there was no disgust on her face, her displeasure instantly infected everyone present. Seeing this, Noah somewhat understood the identity of the person who had come. "Let me introduce them to everyone." Eulephia stepped forward at the right time and spoke in a tone that reminded one of a robot. "This is Rissel Phoenix, the third young master of the Phoenix family, a pure-blooded demon family in the underworld. He is also Lady Laia's fiancé, the fiancé of the next head of the Jamonli family." As expected, Euliphia's introduction was basically the same as Noah expected. This guy named Rissel was the fiancé arranged by the Jamonli family for Laius. Looking at Rissel, who casually put his hands in his pockets and had a smile on his face that made him look like a bully who would bully the weak at any moment, the corners of Noah's mouth slowly curled up. The opportunity to intervene had presented itself to him. Chapter 603. Whoosh! The scorching flames set off layers of sparks with the magic circle as the center. They danced in the air and scattered in all directions. With his hands in his pockets, Rissel, who looked like a thug, did not even look at the others. Instead, he directed his ferocious gaze at Liesel with a mischievous smile on his face, which made Liesel's expression stiffen. "Rissel, what are you doing here? I don't really like coming to the human world. The air and wind in this world are too dirty. It's very uncomfortable for a demon like me who controls fire and wind." Rissel shrugged helplessly. "But even I would be anxious to hear that my fiancé is planning to break off the engagement. Liesel, if you're obedient now, I can go back now." In other words, Rissel came here specifically because he heard that Liesel was planning to break off the engagement? That's quite thoughtful indeed. But it's a pity that he used his thoughtfulness on the wrong person. "Rissel, you're not anxious about me, your fiancé. You're anxious because the path of building a good relationship between Phoenix and the Gimli family is about to be gone, right?" Liesel looked at Rissel coldly. "Since you already know that I'm planning to break off the engagement, you still came to me. That will only intensify my thoughts." Rissel was still smiling mischievously. Even his eyes revealed a look of indifference, as though he was scoffing at Liesel's thoughts. "Say Liesel, don't tell me you don't know that the Gimli family's current situation is not as good as it seems on the surface?" Liesel did not say anything. She only stared at Rissel, which made him twitch his mouth helplessly. "In the perennial war with the angels and fallen angels, many pure-blooded demons on our side have died. Even though we're now out of the war, we're still engaged in small-scale conflicts and confrontations with the angels and fallen angels. It's not that there's no danger. This is especially true for young demons like you, who are left in the mortal world and do not have the protection of their families." Reiser spoke frankly. "The heirs of pure-blooded demons die in pointless conflicts with angels and fallen angels. It's not rare for the bloodline of the family to be severed. You should know how important this is to us pure-blooded demon families, right?" Lias remained silent, but her gaze was getting sharper. It wasn't just Lias. Apart from Aisha, who didn't know what was going on, everyone knew what Rissel was talking about. Even Noah, an outsider who had been in this world for less than a month, could roughly sense the demon's predicament with his sharp political instincts. Due to the large decrease in the number of pure-blooded demons, Beelzebub, one of the current 4 demon kings, developed the technology to turn creatures of other races into demons in order to increase the strength and number of demons. In the demon piece that gave superior demons the ability to provide creatures of other races for reincarnation, a superior demon could have up to 15 reincarnated demons as servants. This way, with the reincarnation of superior demons, the number of demons reincarnated from other races in the underworld, or more accurately, the demon realm, became stronger and stronger. That was why the pure-blooded demons should be worried. They were worried that the ancient pure-blooded demons like them would gradually be replaced by the reincarnated demons from other races. They would become more and more powerless, and in the end, there might not be any pure-blooded demons in the entire demon realm. Demons do need new blood now, and we won't reject the reincarnated demons since they are our hope to continue living. But we can't let pure-blooded demons go extinct just like that, can we? Rissel looked at Leah's amused. In order to not let pure-blooded demons go extinct, Gimli and Phoenix chose you and me to give birth to pure-blooded demon descendants. This is a problem that all pure-blooded demon families have to consider. Compared to me, your family's situation is more serious. At least I have 2 elder brothers, and you don't have to worry about the Phoenix family having no one to inherit if I die. But your family is different, isn't it? There are only 2 siblings in your family, and your elder brother has already left that family to ascend to the top as a demon king. It's impossible for him to lower himself to inherit a pure-blooded demon family. So only you Leahs are left to inherit your family. Rissel pouted. If you don't find a husband and give birth to a descendant, your Gimli family will be completely cut off once you die. There aren't many pure-blooded demon families left in the first place. If we lose the Gimli family, the demon situation will be even worse. So, our marriage is related to the future of demons. Do you understand, Leahs? Rissel's smile suddenly disappeared, and he stared coldly at Leahs. Even if you want to be willful, I won't let you throw a tantrum. Leahs, I'm not only here to see you today, but also to make you take back your decision. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I won't do anything bad next. As soon as his words fell, faint magical power began to rise around Rissel's body, turning into scorching red flames that scattered in the room with dense sparks. A heavy pressure engulfed the entire supernatural research department in an instant. Noah could feel that Isha, who was hiding behind him, trembled violently, and her grip on his clothes tightened. Zhu Nai and the kitten also tensed up their bodies almost reflexively, staring at Rissel as they entered a state of battle readiness. Leah's expression darkened as she watched Rissel squander his magical power in her own office. Just as strands of fiery red mana began to rise from her body as well, a hand suddenly pressed down on her shoulder. Calm down, Leahs. This is the academy. Leah subconsciously turned around and looked behind her. There, Noah extended a hand and put it on her shoulder, shaking his head at her. Class will start soon, and almost all the students are here. If 2 superior demons were to fight here, it wouldn't be as simple as destroying 1 or 2 buildings. Just stop. But teacher, I can't just let Rissel fight here. Leahs frowned. Even if he's alone, if he's allowed to squander his magical power, this academy will burn to the ground. Hearing this, Noah smiled indifferently and shook his head. As long as you don't do anything, I'm sure he won't be able to do anything here. With that, everyone's attention shifted to Noah. Rissel, whose body was burning in flames, seemed to have only noticed Noah now. He narrowed his eyes at Eulifia, who had been silent all this while. I say, why is there a human here? Lord Rissel, Eulifia replied unhurriedly. That seems to be the young mistress' friend. Friend? Rissel looked directly at Noah. His eyes filled with disdain as if he was looking at a giant piece of trash. Leahs has a human as a friend? You're joking, right? No. Rather than a friend, I think I'm more like Leah's mentor. I've given her a lot of advice on the direction of her life. Noah's expression did not change in the face of Rissel's disdainful gaze. He merely smiled and said, Fortunately, Leahs listens to me. I told her to find her own happiness, and she immediately called off the marriage. She's quite obedient, isn't she? This sentence made the atmosphere drop to the freezing point in an instant. Teacher. Leahs, Aisha, Himajima Jurai, kitten, and the others all cried out in shock. Eulifia also turned to Noah, her eyes filled with coldness. Rissel's expression changed from that disdainful look to an ugly one. His gaze toward Noah carried a hint of killing intent and malice. So you're saying that Leahs called off the marriage entirely because of you? Noah raised an eyebrow in response to Rissel's murderous and malicious gaze. After all, no matter how you look at it, a so-called third son of a noble shouldn't be worthy of being the next head of the Gimli family, right? Chapter 604. After all, no matter how you look at it, a so-called third son of a noble can't possibly be worthy of being the next head of the Gimli family, right? As Noah's words echoed in the supernatural research department, The atmosphere of the place changed completely. It was as if a conflict was about to break out on the battlefield, and the smell of smoke began to fill the air. Rizier stared at Noah and glanced at Noah's hand on Leah's shoulder. After seeing that Leah didn't resist at all the expressions on his face disappeared. Teacher. Leah's eyes widened. She didn't expect Noah to draw the flames of war to her, and she became a little anxious for a moment. However, Noah's hand on Leah's shoulder kept tightening, to the point that Leah felt some pain. The astute Leah's immediately caught Noah's meaning. Noah was hinting to Leah not to interrupt. Leah didn't know what Noah was planning to do, and while she hesitated whether to interrupt, the anxiety in her heart grew stronger. Sigh. Rizier, on the other hand, actually sighed and pulled out a hand from his pocket to cover his face. I didn't expect that the culprit who caused the chaos in the Gimli family and the Phoenix family was a human. I don't know how to express my feelings when I think about how I rushed to the human realm because of a human. With that, Rizier opened his eyes and looked straight at Noah through the gaps between his fingers. There was no emotion in his eyes. Then it shouldn't be a problem if I kill him, right? Leah, Aisha, Jurai Himishima, and Kitten's expressions changed instantly. No one doubted that Rizier was just saying that for fun. After all, to demons, 1 or 2 human lives were something they could take as they wished, and they wouldn't feel guilty at all. On the other hand, demons like Leah's and Kangna, who had assimilated into human society and were friendly instead of hostile, were the truly unusual ones. In addition, the heavy murderous aura emitted from Rizzle's body told everyone present that he was a very dangerous person. He was serious. Facing such a riser, Noah looked up. Even though he was enveloped by that heavy murderous aura, his expression remained calm. He only said this one sentence. It doesn't matter. If you can do it, just do it. Teacher. Leah's could not help but call out. Please calm down. Don't worry, Leah's. I'm not losing my cool. I just find it interesting. Noah patted Liesel's shoulder. Undoubtedly he was involved, but he was much calmer than Liesel. He looked at Riesel and smiled. Undoubtedly, it has already reached the point where it can't continue without humans, yet it still looks down on humans. Don't you think this kind of demon is very funny? Noah's words had targeted all demons. This time, not to mention Leah's and the others, even Gulifia frowned. Human, you really do have guts. Riser laughed. His laughter was a little crazy. He looked at Noah with a gaze full of mockery. Since you've said so, I'll kill you even if it's for the demon's reputation. If belittling humans and showing off the demon's superiority is for the demon's reputation, then I don't mind you doing it. Noah's eyes were filled with mockery. Then, Mr. Demon, are you planning to duel with me? No, no, no. You've misunderstood. Rizzle shook his head with a smile, but there was no smile in his eyes. It's too serious to call it a duel. Just a little fun. With that, the mana around Rizzle expanded, turning the scorching flames into waves of fire that attacked the surroundings. Just as Rizzle was about to kill Noah, Noah raised an eyebrow as if he didn't know that Rizzle was about to attack. In other words, this isn't a duel but a game? Ha 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 ha. That's right. Rizzle laughed out loud. Just a game. Have fun. Upon hearing that, the corner of Noah's mouth slowly curled up. That arc made it seem as if everything was under his control. It was as if everything was within his expectations. Since it's a game, there should be a wager, right? A wager. Rizzle was stunned. That's right, a wager. Noah pretended to be deep in thought for a moment. His eyes that were looking at Riser didn't lose their brightness. Then Noah said, "Oh, right. If you lose, I'll give your fiancé to you. How about that?" Everyone in the Supernatural Research Department was stunned when those words echoed in their ears. Teacher. Leah's was completely stunned. She didn't expect things to develop like this, and she was at a loss. As for Gulifia, she felt a chill run down her spine when she saw the bright luster in Noah's eyes. She felt that the man in front of her seemed to have calculated everything, and forcibly changed the situation from the Gemengli family and the Phoenix family into a personal issue. In other words, this was no longer a confrontation between the Gemengli family and the Phoenix family, but a confrontation between Noah and Rizzle. Unknowingly, this man named Noah had the entire situation in his hands and grasped the crux of the situation. If Rizzle really did agree to Noah's wager out of impulse and lost, Eulifia found it unbelievable that such a thought popped up in her mind, and an ominous feeling gradually grew. Her instincts told her that she had to stop this from happening. Unfortunately, before she could stop him, Rizzle burst into laughter as if he had been poked in the funny part. It was as if he saw a circus clown performing in front of him, and he couldn't stop laughing no matter what. And so, Rizzle said that he had embarked on a path of no return. Then what if you lose? If I lose, I'll be responsible for convincing Liaz to go back with you and complete the marriage. Noah shrugged as if he had been waiting for this for a long time. Since I have a way to make Liaz back out of the marriage, I naturally have a way to convince her to go through with it. I believe that if Liaz gives up on the idea of canceling the marriage, you'll have a lot less to worry about, right? Upon hearing Noah's words, Rizer, who was just fooling around with Noah, froze for a moment before finally becoming serious. Teacher. Liaz called out again, and this time she sounded very agitated. But just as Liaz was about to say something, Noah glanced at her. The unquestionable look in his eyes made Liaz's heart skip a beat, and she couldn't help but swallow the words she was about to say. In Rizzle's eyes, that look meant that Riaz had agreed to it. His eyes sparkled at once. Right. Let's leave the game for tomorrow. At this moment, Noah changed the topic and said helplessly, as you can see, I'm just a human. If I win the game by luck, there's nothing I can do if some noble young master decides to go back on his word. That's why I hope that the Gimli family and the Phoenix family can witness the game tomorrow. That way you won't be able to go back on your word, right? Superfluous. Rizzle sneered. Very well. Let the two families be the witnesses. With the nobles as witnesses, you won't be able to go back on your word, right, Liaz? Aye. Liaz took a step forward, but was still held back by Noah. Liaz, if you continue to object, it will only make the issue of your marriage back to an unsolvable stalemate. Noah reminded her. Unless you have a solution, everything you do is just a last-ditch struggle. Liaz was speechless. Very good. Then it's settled. Rizzle's face lit up with joy as he laughed. I'll look forward to tomorrow then. Seeing that the situation had entered an irreversible state, Eulifia had nothing else to say, which made Noah smile. And just like that, the matter was successfully taken over by Noah. Everything was going smoothly. Chapter 605. An hour after Rizzle left the Supernatural Research Department, Liasel received a notification from the Gemengli family. Tomorrow, the bet between Noah Dole and Rizzle Phoenix will be held in the form of an official duel. All the superior demon families, including the Gemengli family and the Phoenix family, will be paying attention to it. Eulifia will be the judge then. After dispelling the communication from the Gemengli family with a small magic circle, Liasel, who was sitting behind a luxurious desk, rubbed her temples and spoke in frustration. Why did things turn out this way? At first she was ready to resist to the very end no matter what. But things had suddenly developed to a point where even Liasel herself couldn't intervene. What the hell is going on? I didn't expect that the Gemengli family would agree to the bet between Sensei Noah and Lord Rizzle. Takanai Himishima was confused. It's just a bet made by a human. Even if Lord Rizzle agreed, the Gemengli family and the Phoenix family wouldn't agree, right? It's precisely because it was a bet issued by a human without permission that they agreed. Noah, who was sitting on the sofa and sipping tea, explained casually. For those pure-blooded demon nobles, a human has no chance of winning against the third son of the Phoenix family. Since that's the case, instead of ignoring the bet and dealing with the willfulness of the Gemengli family's eldest daughter, it's better to legalize the bet and let the third son of the Phoenix family win the bet legitimately. When that happens with so many nobles as witnesses, you won't be able to go back on your word, Liasel. Well, the actions of those nobles are within my expectations. I'm not surprised. Noah moved the teacup away from his mouth, his eyes filled with thoughts. But I didn't expect that the Gemengli family and the Phoenix family would agree so easily in just an hour. Aren't they worried that the young master of the Phoenix family would lose at all? For demons, most of the humans who had a large population were very weak. But Liasel also said that there were humans who could rival demons. For example, the wielder of the sacred gear. For example, the exorcists of the church. Another example was Noah, who was regarded as a magician. Although most of the mages, exorcists, and holders of sacred gear only had the power to match low-level demons, and some were even weaker than low-level demons, there were still existences that could match high-level demons. Therefore, Noah had originally intended to show a bit of weakness, and let the Gimli family and Phoenix family lower their guard against him. However, he didn't expect the Gimli family to agree to this duel so easily. This was truly beyond Noah's expectations. Could it be that those demon nobles really despise humans to the extent that they don't even think that there's a possibility of them losing? If that was the case, then Noah was overestimating the demon nobles. And yet, what Riaz said next answered Noah's question. Even if my mentor has the ability to match superior demons, those nobles would not believe that Rizal would lose. Riaz said with a deep voice. Because Rizer will never die. Hearing Leah's deep voice, Noah reacted instantly. Never die? What does that mean? Don't you know, teacher? It was Jurai Himashima who answered Noah's question. In the past, Phoenix was once regarded as a sacred beast that controlled life and was revered by people. Their tears could heal any injury, and if one drank their blood, they could even become immortal. In the human world, many countries left such legends. Noah also remembered after hearing Jurai Himashima's words. In order to make up for his lack of knowledge in mythology, Noah had also read many books on mythology in the world of the deicide. Among them, Noah also knew about the knowledge related to Phoenix. After all, the so-called Phoenix was actually the legendary Phoenix of immortality. And among the sacred beasts of Phoenix, there is also a marquis who is listed as one of the 72 pillars of the highest position, belonging to all the demon bloodlines, Leah said with a heavy tone. Whether it is the sacred beast of Phoenix or the demon of Phoenix, there is almost no difference in terms of ability. There's no difference. Noah narrowed his eyes slowly. I see. So that's why you said that Rizer will never die? Phoenix was the Phoenix of immortality. As a sacred beast that controlled life and had the title of Phoenix of immortality, there was no need to doubt what one of Phoenix's basic abilities was. Yes, as a member of the Phoenix race, Rizal has an immortal body, Lias said, emphasizing each word. In other words, teacher, you have to duel with an immortal body. Duel with an immortal body? In that case, it was easy to imagine what the result would be. Even if they are attacked, they can immediately regenerate and heal their injuries. Moreover, the Phoenix family can control fire and burn everything. They are truly immortal. Leah gritted her teeth. Because Rizer has an immortal body, neither the Gimli family nor the Phoenix family thinks that Rizer will lose to a human. Even if the human has the power to rival a superior demon or even more powerful, Rizer will not lose. It was because of this that the Gimli family immediately agreed to the bet between Noah and Rizer. They were not worried that Rizer would lose. Of course, an immortal body is not truly invincible. If you want to defeat an immortal phoenix, there are still ways. Leah sighed. After all, even if the body is immortal, the heart and spirit cannot be immortal. As long as you can defeat Phoenix's spirit, you can win. Then their regeneration will stop and they will fall. So if you want to defeat Phoenix, you either need to have absolute power to overwhelm your opponent and cause his spirit to collapse, or you need to be more resilient than your opponent and continuously defeat your opponent. You need to exhaust your opponent's spirit by defeating him again and again. Tatsunai Himashima also sighed. Of course, if you have the power to rival a god or a demon king, then it is undoubtedly the easiest to defeat the opponent's body and spirit in one fell swoop. In the demon world, all demons were divided into 5 levels. From lowest to highest, they were lesser demon, intermediate demon, superior demon, and demon king. Whether it was Leah, Kanna, or Rizer, they were all superior demons. So, if you want to crush a superior demon, you have to at least have the power of a superior demon. If one wanted to defeat the opponent again and again and exhaust the mental strength of a superior phoenix demon, in addition to having strong endurance and tenacity and the ability to fight continuously, one had to be at least a superior demon in terms of strength. As for having the power to rival a god or a demon king, that level of strength could defeat a phoenix's body and spirit in an instant, right? No matter which one it was, the Gimli family and the Phoenix family did not think that Noah could have it. So, in the face of a bet that they could not lose, who would disagree? Even if that's the case, are you still going to fulfill your end of the bet? Leah stared at Noah with a serious expression. Maybe you will be killed by Riser. Hearing that, Noah laughed. His laugh was unusually disdainful. To all of you, the immortal body may be very powerful. Unfortunately, I face many such enemies, and they are much more difficult to deal with than Rissel or whatever. Noah finished the tea in his cup in one gulp, stood up and looked at Lias. Crushing the opponent with absolute power? Exhausting the opponent with unmatched endurance? Crushing the opponent with the power to rival a god or a demon king? No, there is no need to go through so much trouble. Noah turned around, waved at Leah and Jurai Himashima, and walked out of the Supernatural Research Department. Anyway, just wait and see. After saying that, Noah left without looking back. Leah, Jurai Himashima said, is this really okay? There is nothing okay about it. Leah kept looking at the direction where Noah left. I can only choose to believe in Master.